direct from Auckland Park in Johannesburg. This is SAFM. Welcome to it, the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane and I'm here to deliver your morning brief. Come, let us spend the next 3 hours together informing and engaging each other and sharpening each other's perspectives on the key issues of the day. Here's what's coming up on the morning brief today. There's a litany of complaints against the renowned senior advocate Dali Mpofu, and that has now been consolidated into one inquiry with 7 misconduct charges leveled by the Legal Practice Council against him. This is potentially Mpofu's fight of his life, in a manner of speaking, to save his legal career. If he's worried about it, he's not showing it. Dali Mpofu will talk to me extensively about the upcoming hearing that is scheduled for the 30th of April, which stems from various incidents, including his heated exchanges during the Thulasizwe Simelane impeachment hearing in Parliament, involving the then chairperson of that committee that was inquiring into Mkhwebane's fitness to hold office, Kobutile Kyanki. Yes, the one where Mpofu vowed that Kyanki's day would come, and I've seen many observers remarking now that it seems that the day of reckoning has come, but it has come from Mpofu himself. So my conversation with Advocate Dali Mpofu coming up at about 7:10, so in the second hour of the show. Then I'll tell you this. The Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities, it's known as the CRL Commission, the commission with the long name, has released a damning report on widespread abuse and lack of accountability in the country's Christian religious sector. So this follows years of investigative hearings. The commission has now found that many religious institutions operate without any oversight, often exploiting people's beliefs and functioning as unregulated businesses. Prince George Mahlang, with the CRL Commission's Deputy Chairperson, will join me at about 7:20. But I also want to hear your views about the desirability of regulating churches and ensuring that they are registered and things like those. They are talking, for example, about a peer review mechanism that they believe should be in place. And then the other story that I want to highlight for you very quickly, a recent report by the Institute for Economic Justice has revealed significant flaws in the administration of the country's Social Relief of Distress Grant, the SRD grant, with the finding that nearly half of approved beneficiaries experience irregular payments, while millions of eligible individuals are excluded due to some technicalities as well as administrative and design flaw systems. So you will know that there was that judgment that happened in January that also made similar findings about how the SRD grant is being administered, and in a way made the finding that people were being deliberately excluded in a way by making it almost impossible for people to qualify. So we'll bring that conversation into focus at about 8:20. Of course, we'll also touch on that big story, the shooting incident that happened at Walter Sisulu University during a protest by students there. We'll speak to a representative of the university who are disputing that the person who's now deceased was a student at the campus. So we have the full morning brief team that is primed and ready with your updates throughout the morning. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne watching your traffic, Zaikan is at the sports desk, and Melissa Buta on standby in the next few minutes with the morning brief in brief. Dowling Lechela has your business and market news covered, and Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at around 7:20 this morning. I'll take your calls. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes. Please send them to 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel. That is SAFM Radio. So what are we waiting for? We've got a show to put together. Let's get it started.
Pressure keeps mounting and the thirst for maximum points has drastically increased. FC Union Berlin and VfB Stuttgart are in a tense battle for victory. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on FC Union Berlin versus VfB Stuttgart on Saturday 19 April at 6:30 p.m. Stream it live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
At 13 minutes after 6, let's start with Melissa Puta with the daily morning brief in brief. Good morning to you, Melissa.
Morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me about this protest by female educators in the early childhood development sector. They marched to the mayor's office. What's that about?
Yes, so the almost 70 female educators and principals, mainly from Johannesburg and informal settlements like Alexandra and Soweto, were going to protest, demanding a review for unreasonable municipal bylaws. The educators, led by the South African Congress for ECD, argued that the strict bylaws are hindering their ability to operate and their ability to have access to subsidies. These regulations are requiring them to have formal documents such as building plans, zoning certificates, which are often unattainable in unproclaimed lands. The educators are also saying that their laws are forcing them to reduce enrollment and staff, which affects the children's access to health care. So a representative from the mayor's office has received the memorandum and said that within 21 days they should have a response.
Yeah, an important matter to follow through and actually ensure that it's resolved. What with the recent change that now makes early childhood development compulsory as part of the schooling journey. Tell me about the arrest of a man known as Mjinja in KwaZulu-Natal, or Putin. This was the menacing guy who was gun-toting and wielding weapons, is it?
Yes, so Linda Shongwa rather, was found in Midrand in Gauteng. Shongwa has been on the run since July of 2020 after failing to appear in court for firearm-related charges. He's also the man that's accused of murdering his 22-year-old girlfriend and her mother in Pinetown in March of this year. In addition, Shongwa was allegedly extorting money from local businesses and transport operations, around the province. So he is quite the menace, and police have thanked the community at large for helping in this arrest.
Yeah, there was something quite scary about just that image that I saw that was shared by the police when they were looking for him. Tell me about what parliamentarians have had to say about this case involving the rape of a child in KwaZulu-Natal, in Matatiele rather, in the Eastern Cape.
So parliamentarians have expressed frustration over the lack of progress in this high-profile case. People on social media have also expressed that it's quite disappointing that despite national outrage and protests, and police have still yet to identify the suspect. However, the officials who were present before the Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police have explained that there are quite a number of challenges in this investigation, including the limited access to the victim due to an illness, and she is also in need of specialized psychosocial support. They said that so far 30 statements have been collected from the school staff, medical personnel, witnesses, and the victim's family. DNA samples have been collected as well from people of interest, but no suspects have been identified yet. They further clarified that the Bergview College principal, Jaco Pieterse, is not a person of interest and did not provide a DNA sample, countering public speculation and criticism from lobby group AfriForum. However, the police did ensure and acknowledge that there are gaps in the investigation, but accountability will be, solved at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's one that we should always continue to watch to ensure that issue is investigated thoroughly and that there's full accountability where there have been lapses. Melissa, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with your morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So today is Wednesday. Let me give you a sense of what your weather will be looking like. Quite a number of warnings that have come through from the South African Weather Service. I think about 3 impact-based warnings. The first one, orange level 5 warning. So take it very seriously. Orange level 5 warning. It says disruptive rainfall resulting in damage to infrastructure and flooding of settlements and roads over the southeastern parts of KwaZulu-Natal in the morning. Then you have a yellow level 4 warning. It says disruptive rainfall resulting in flooding of roads and settlements, both formal and informal, and major disruption of traffic flow due to major roads being flooded or closed. Those conditions are expected over most parts of KwaZulu-Natal, except in the northeast. And then lastly, you have a yellow level 2 warning. It says disruptive rain resulting in heavy downpours, which will lead to flooding of susceptible areas, roads and bridges, localized damage to properties, and temporary disruption of municipal services. Those conditions are expected over the Wild Coast in the Eastern Cape. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 25. Johannesburg will be partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 15 to 22. Mbombela, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 17 to 26. Polokwane, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 15 to 24. Mahikeng, same conditions, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 13 to 24. Bloemfontein, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 8 to 20. Kimberley will have morning fog patches, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 11 to 21. Uppington will have morning fog patches, otherwise it will be fine with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 26. Cape Town, fine, 16 to 21. George, partly cloudy, 11 to 19. Gqeberha, cloudy with isolated showers and rain in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 15 to 20. East London, cloudy with scattered showers and rain, 15 to 21. Durban will be cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 18 to 23. Richards Bay will be cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 18 to 24. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog, otherwise cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 13 to 19.
Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV License Rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, racing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward. Just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 Rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV License Rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference. The Blue Diamonds want to shine all the way from kickoff to the final whistle, while the Rockets plan to rock up with a strong winning mentality. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Experience the exciting battle between JVWFC and Tears Galaxy Queens on Sunday 20 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
At 22 minutes after 6, let's turn our attention to this story. The U.S. President Donald Trump has reignited controversy by blaming Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for the ongoing war in Russia, just one day after a devastating missile strike killed 35 civilians and injured 117 in the Ukrainian city of Sumy. Trump claims that Zelensky, along with former U.S. President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin, have shared responsibility for the war's immense human toll. So let's speak to Roland Henwood, a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time once again this morning. I don't know what you make of this latest, these latest comments coming out of the White House, coming out a day after what has been dubbed Russia's deadliest attack in Ukraine since the year began. It seems to be going against the tide of the direction in which Trump himself has been trying to steer the conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah, good morning, Thulasizwe. This is very strange and actually difficult to understand. The only indication we have, I think there are two issues. The first is that President Trump promised to stop this war very quickly, and he's moved his deadline more and more, and now he seems to have been going basically nowhere with this. The Russians are ignoring and just continuing in terms of their rhetoric and also the physical conflict that they've engaged in, and we've seen the last very deadly missile bombing of an urban area, killing 34 people. So the issue, that's the one issue. Trump is frustrated. He's not getting anywhere with his peace process. The second one is that, and this goes back to his first term in office and a lot of what has happened around him as a person and his relationship with Mr. Putin. And the indication, the basic interpretation that many give is that he has a lot of respect for Mr. Putin as a strong leader. And the argument is that Mr. Trump respects strong leaders, and that is interpreted as mostly authoritarian leaders. And then there's also an indication, or an argument rather, that he has no way to stand up to Mr. Putin. Whenever they talk, Putin plays him, and he just grumbles. So it's a question of leadership, but it's a question of a particular kind of leadership and engagement between two personalities, which is, of course, very difficult to analyze and explain.
Yeah, but what happened here, Roland? I mean, as much as Trump gets a lot of criticism for especially the way he believes he has leverage over Vladimir Putin and believes that he enjoys Vladimir Putin's respect, which many actually question. But as much as there's that criticism, we were at a point where Steve Witkoff was reporting that in his meeting with Putin, they were now at a point where they were talking about how do you police a truce over a long front line with many, many different dynamics at various points. It seems to me that we are regressing instead of moving forward.
Well, that's exactly the point. If one looks at the latest meeting that happened between the two, Witkoff again and representatives of Mr. Putin Friday last week, he came out saying we are now very close to something very big for the world. And the argument he presented was that Russians are no longer talking about a ceasefire. They're talking about a complete end to the war. But in the meantime, nothing is changing on the ground. The grinding war is continuing. And what is different is, again, the fact that Mr. Trump now says the war was started by Zelensky. I mean, no one in this world can agree with that. If you know what happened, it was broadcast across the world live, how the war actually started, how the attacks from Russia started to unfold. There's a very long history behind this that is well documented. This really boggles the mind.
Sorry, Roland, isn't that a reference to Ukraine's and Zelensky's, ambitions to join NATO, which some commentators view as having been provocative in that they're saying that it would have brought NATO to the doorstep of Russia and saying that no president would allow such a situation. Isn't that the reference when you hear people such as Trump saying they blame Zelensky in part for the start of the war?
Well, that's the argument of people who accept the Russian argument, but not everybody does that. And I think the logic of this is also questionable. Can South Africa say we will not allow Botswana to join the East African community? If they do that, we're going to go to war. It just doesn't make sense. There's the question of sovereignty that's given up very highly in the world until it actually happens. Also, a secondary issue, but equally important, the issues, political issues in Ukraine was never about NATO. It was about the European Union. And there's a long history of conflict and influencing from different sides on the debate in Ukraine that should it go east or should it go west. And you've had the interesting history of massive public protests in the politics around this. But the NATO issue came about very late, very much in the context of the conflict that actually evolved and the issue of protection. In any case, at this stage, the NATO question is a moot question. The issue is how do you resolve the conflict?
Yeah.
And probably by going the way Putin wants it to go is one way. And that may be seen as a victory by Trump. But Europe is going to probably pay a very big price for this.
Yeah. All right. I've got to thank you for your time and your insights once again. That's Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. Not only are they doing well in continental football, but actually even in the domestic league, rising to third are Stellenbosch.
Oh, yeah. Tula Stellies just RSVP'd to the big boys table, and that's how they're doing it this season. What a story for them. And let me tell you, last night as well, their dream season kept soaring. Fresh from shocking the Egyptian giants Zamalek in the CAF Confed Cup, Stellies climbed to third on the Betway Premiership log after a crucial 1-0 win over Amazulu at the Dani Craven Stadium. Sanele Barnes netted the winner, keeping Stellenbosch firmly in the race for continental football and showing serious depth despite an injury to their striker Ashley Cupido. Let's go to some action elsewhere. This time, the Real Madrid striker Kylian Mbappe banned for one La Liga match after his red card against Alaves. The Fen striker lunged in with an ugly tackle on Antonio Blanco during Madrid's 1-0 league win on Sunday and was dismissed. Mbappe will miss Madrid's next La Liga match against Athletic Bilbao, and Carlo Ancelotti's side are trying to overhaul leaders Barcelona. In the meantime, Aston Villa produced a comeback against Paris Saint-Germain at Villa Park, but they are out of the Champions League following an incredible 5-4 aggregate defeat. The other match saw Borussia Dortmund. They couldn't recover from a first-leg demolition by Barcelona to reach the Champions League semi-finals, despite winning the return leg 3-1. Now, of course, they will face Inter Milan or Bayern Munich, with the Italian side taking a 2-1 lead back to the San Siro for tonight's second leg. On to tennis action. The defending Barcelona Opens champion Casper Ruud sailed into the last 16 with a 6-4, 6-3 win over Daniel Ilahi Galan. And Carlos Alcaraz forced to work hard to beat the underdog Ethan Quinn to reach the Barcelona last 16 with a 6-2, 7-6 victory. And finally, cycling. The person who spat on cyclist Matthew van der Poel during last month's Sasko Bank Classic has been identified and fined. The Dutch rider van der Poel, who won the race, was spat on in the East Flanders race of Rons while leading solo with about 30 kilometers remaining. The prosecuting office at East Flanders confirmed that the person has been identified. Now, police say the individual will have to pay a fine of up to 7,500 Rand, and the case will not be taken further. That's where we leave it. We'll have more sport. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Alliance of Business Leaders, Business for South Africa, has described President Cyril Ramaphosa's appointment of a special envoy to the U.S. as a crucial step towards improving relations between South Africa and America. One of the accused in the Jocelyn Smith disappearance case will be back in the Western Cape High Court sitting in Saldanha Bay today. Stevino van Ryn will continue to testify in a trial within a trial. And police in the Eastern Cape say they're investigating an incident in which a person was gunned down and several others wounded at the Walter Sisulu University's Mthatha campus. The incident happened during a students' protest yesterday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy rain across eThekwini around the Greater Durban area. It might surprise you. There was a lot of distribution about warnings for Tuesday, but I haven't seen many for this morning, so maybe that's sort of might just come as a bit of a surprise, but it is extremely heavy right around that central Durban area. I've just popped a video up on x.com at Traffic SA. You can just log on, have a look at that, and just see how intense that rain is. Surface water, surface puddling, and flooding. A real danger because there's been so much rain around the eThekwini region. The land is pretty sodden, and you just get that runoff that just takes extra time. And with about a mil an hour sort of thing falling at the moment, maybe a bit more than that, it really just sort of causes some real problems. So if you're setting off this morning for work or wherever you might be going around Durban, go with full consciousness of road safety. Just keep that absolute top of mind this morning. It is dangerous. It is pretty treacherous. Everything already on a go slow through the region. Joburg side, N3 North is heavy. A crash at Buccleuch. Traffic all the way back through to Alexandra. Heavy pressure out of Benoni then towards Boksburg as well. Looks like an issue around Atlas Road this morning. Traffic very quickly already parking back through to the Snake Road exit. Cape Town's M7, Mitchell's Plain exit out to Samora Michelle, looking busier than it normally does for this time of the morning. And behind that, the R300 coming through from Stock Road down to join that M7's heavy. The side road, Velta Frieden Road, fairly heavy out of Mitchell's Plain to Philippi. A lot of people avoiding the M7 is jamming up that sort of parallel alternative. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you, Ndauling. Ndauling Lechela joining us now for the first update of the morning. Ndauling, tell me about China's economy and its performance in quarter two of the year.
Morning, Thulas. This is actually for the first quarter. I think I made the mistake in our notes. So China's economy expanding by 5.4% in the first quarter, surpassing expectations despite the looming threat of U.S. tariffs. Now, the strong economic performance was driven by a policy stimulus push that began in late 2024. Key indicators such as retail sales and industrial output showed significant growth, with retail sales rising 5.9% and industrial output increasing 7.7%. But the real estate sector continued to be a drag on the fixed income or fixed asset investment, which grew only 4.2% in the first quarter. Now, while the Chinese government still believes it can hit its growth target of 5% for the year, financial institutions aren't as upbeat, citing the negative impact of U.S. tariffs on exports. Now, UBS has made one of the most pessimistic forecasts, projecting China's economy to only expand by 3.4% this year. The bank expects China's exports to the U.S. to fall, leading to a 10% decline in overall exports. As a result, there is growing pressure on Chinese officials to push through more stimulus measures to support domestic consumption and the housing market, while reducing the economy's reliance on exports and investment.
So from news that Xi Jinping might like somewhat on the economic front to news that Donald Trump will particularly like if it turns out to be true. Tell me about reports that Honda may be planning to start to manufacture in the United States.
That's right, Thulas, and this is according to a report by the Nikkei newspaper. The Japanese automaker is exploring the possibility of relocating some of its car production from Mexico and Canada to the U.S. This move is seen as a response, of course, to the new U.S. auto tariffs imposed by President Trump, which include a 25% levy on imported vehicles. Now, the plan, according to the report, would see Honda increasing its U.S. vehicle production by as much as 30% over the next 2 to 3 years. This would be a major step towards achieving its goal of having 90% of its cars sold in the U.S. manufactured in the country. Now, while Honda has not officially confirmed these plans, the company did decline to comment on the report, stating that the information has not been formally announced. The potential shift in its production strategy would be a huge development in Honda's operations and could have implications for the broader auto industry.
Yeah, not only that, Ndauling, we wouldn't hear the end of it from the White House. From one Donald Trump. All right, Ndauling, please give us our first roundup of market activity for the morning.
So stocks unable to hold on to gains, U.S. stocks in particular, slipping into the red overnight. Traders on that end digesting earnings reports and assessing trade volatility. The Dow Jones led the losses on that front, down 0.38%. Sentiment remained upbeat here at home, with local markets in the green. The all-share jumping 0.9%, boosted by a near 2.3% rise in the resources 10 complex. The JSE seems to be shrugging off the disappointing mining output figures we got yesterday. Moving over to the currency front, the rand back above the 19 rand mark on the back foot this morning at 19.01 to the dollar, just showing how choppy trade is, how volatile trade remains. And then over in Asia, markets tanking following global peers, and this despite strong growth figures from China.
Always right on the money. That's Hantauleng Lechela. She'll be back with more updates for you, and that's in her second report just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning to you. Tell me about these meetings and the facilitation happening involving the United Kingdom. This is one of the most serious conflict and humanitarian situations on the continent right now, isn't it?
Refreshing morning, Thulas, indeed, Thulas, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Thulas, yesterday's meeting in London of the International Conference on Humanitarian Aid for Sudan, chaired by UK but facilitated by the European Union and the African Union. Very important that the UK it is putting more money now to what they are calling a serious crisis in terms of food shortage as well as medical assistance. And that came from the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, raising the issue of the pathway to peace in Sudan. The AU Special Envoy from the Peace and Security Council, Bankole Adeyo, raising that there can be no military solution to us in Sudan, only if there's an immediate and unconditional cessation of hostilities. And the issue of all-inclusive dialogue is necessary for the people of Sudan. We know very well that many African countries were there to last, including Kenya, as it has been said that it is supporting RSF, but Kenya says that they are part of the mediation of the conflict in North Sudan.
And then in Guinea-Conakry, tell me about the departure of the former junta leader, Musa Dadis Camara, for medical treatment.
To remember that this is a leader who has brought the darkest chapter in the history of Guinea-Conakry in 2009 when people lost their lives in a stadium. It was a crackdown against opposition leaders and members. And now this leader has to leave during this week to last clandestinely, others saying going to Casablanca to receive medical treatment. Remember last month he was given a presidential pardon citing the issues of health reasons. Now he's moving to Morocco to receive medical assistance.
And then closer to home, Sipho, tell me about Lesotho and its decision around Starlink. This has to do with all this negotiation of these trade relationships and overall diplomatic relationship with the United States, doesn't it?
That is quite true to us, but that has angered the civic organization in Lesotho called Section 2, alleging that the Lesotho Communications Authority, they have demonstrated a betrayal, and also their act to us is to undermine, is to place what they call foreign corporate interest above democratic will and the long-term developmental needs of the people of Lesotho. Remember here, Thulas, it's almost a decade lease licensing, and others are saying that the Starlink in Lesotho is 100% foreign-owned, and that's why this civic organization, Section 2, is lamenting on the issues around, of the shareholders, but also to us what they say, how do you safeguard national interest and promote inclusive local participation? And as we know, to us, the global traffic of tariffs is the one that has pushed Lesotho. We know that Lesotho suffered under AGOA almost 50%, but it was later being revised by President Trump.
Yeah, and of course, it was one of those countries that had been hit with some of the highest tariffs in the world. It was Lesotho. Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, take me to 16 April 1964. What happened of significance on this day?
It's almost 61 years ago when the leader of in Zimbabwe, known by Joshua Mkabuko Nyongolo Nkomo, was served with restriction orders to us that he wanted to move around Zimbabwe. He failed to engage with the late Kabarange Julius Nyerere to support his plan to have a government in exile. You'll recall those are the struggle of ZAPU, ZANU during those years. Kabuko himself, Thulas, having assisted even the African National Congress in the late 40s. Hence, this history is very important when you have to understand the history of South Rhodesia, North Rhodesia, all those colonial states. These are the leaders who emerged in the late 60s. Joshua Mkabuko Nyongolo Nkomo, who was today restricted a free movement Thulas within his land where he was born. Asante sana Thulas, as was said in your conversation, SFM, observing the freedom man.
Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula with your Africa update there. Always fascinating, just the flavor and sample of some of the stories that you should be aware of playing out on the continent.
When your business expands, it's time to look for the kind of space that'll offer it more than square meters on a plan. At Dube Tradeport, we're a place for high-value manufacturing, efficient air cargo logistics, and advanced future farming technology. Doesn't that sound like a place where your business can take shape? If so, move your business to Dube Tradeport and grow beyond potential.
The Toffees want to convert pressure to pleasure by claiming maximum points against the reigning champions.
To put Everton level, he certainly does. No mistake. Beautifully done by Iliman Andai.
But the citizens are not interested in any outcome but victory.
And there's Grealish, and inside 2 minutes, City are in front. And Jack Grealish, his first Premier League.
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Everton FC and Manchester City FC on Saturday 19 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hey Msansi, autumn may be here, but we're extending the sunshine on our Blue Sky offers at Ford. Get a new Everest XLT from only 942,000 Rand or just 9,999 per month when financed through Ford Credit, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. 10% deposit, primeless 5%, 40% residual. And remember, every Blue Sky offer comes standard with our Ford Family Promise. That's just 9,999 at your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
Coming up to 15 minutes to 7, the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities, known as the CRL Rights Commission, has released a damning report on widespread abuse and lack of accountability in the country's Christian religious sector. Following years of investigative hearings, the Commission has found that many religious institutions operate without oversight, often exploiting people's beliefs and functioning as unregulated businesses. So let's speak now to Prince George Mahlangu, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Before we get into the findings of this work that you've done, I'd just like a point of clarity on how separate is this work from the body of work you did when you were looking at the commercialization of religion in South Africa a couple of years ago. I think it was, 2016, 2017, thereabouts. Is this a different body of work or is it the same body of work?
No, thank you, and good morning, Thulasizwe and your listeners. It is from that body of work where we then said that there should be a committee that will look into how we deal with the findings from that report. In other words, a committee that will specifically look at coming up with recommendations and a way forward on ensuring that the recommendations from that report are implemented, or they find a place where this Christian sector can then be housed. In other words, we are saying this Section 22 committee, in terms of our Act, will then look at mechanisms of dealing with these issues that we unearthed in the report, especially that relate to the promoting and protecting of the rights of Christian believers, whilst ensuring the religious freedom is maintained in line with the Constitution. So that's amongst one of the things. So it's as a result of that body of work.
So it builds onto it. So now that you're talking about that Section 22 committee, is this the peer review mechanism that you've been talking about? And how much buy-in does it have from religious leaders? Because I remember some tensions at the time when you were having those hearings, tensions that were questioning the extent to which and the desirability of regulating religion.
The most important thing that I want to clear this morning is that this is not about regulating religion. You can never do that. And I think it is important because we note that there are still those that continue to mislead the public, that this is what we are doing. We are not coming up with a committee that will regulate religion. We want the religious leaders to account some way. I think that is what the essence of the report is about, that if you choose as a profession to be a religious leader, you must be held accountable by somebody, by an association, just like any other profession. If you're a journalist, there is somewhere, there is an institution that regulates your conduct. If you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, and so forth. So this committee is set up, will be led by religious leaders from within the Christian sector that will then come up with these recommendations going forward in terms of how the Christian sector should be the oversight of religious leaders of how that would be conducted.
Yeah. So for those who don't remember what it is that you found, what is this recommendation? The recommendations that include this committee, the Section 22 committee that you're talking about, this peer review mechanism. What is it meant to remedy? What are the trends that you found disturbing that you are now seeking to address?
Well, what we found were disturbing findings that anybody can wake up tomorrow and set up a church. Anybody can work with children without being vetted in terms of the Children's Act. Anybody can wake up and set up a church and claim to be sent by God and do miracles. So we found that there were a lot of issues that relate to the conduct of religious leaders, which violated the Constitution of South Africa. So it is in terms of all those transgressions that we have found. And there are others which are still topical in the news that compel us to set up this committee so that we can find a lasting solution to dealing with religious leaders that transgress the Constitution.
In fact, you describe some of those, some churches. Well, of course, it's the minority as opposed to the majority of churches. But you're saying you found instances of extremism where you describe some of them as being extremist in their beliefs as well as what they prescribe for those who attend those churches.
No, absolutely correct. We maintain that it is not all churches; it is some churches, and we are clear that it is not all churches, and it is for that reason that this section committee will be led by religious leaders. Yeah. We therefore yesterday introduced the Reverend Professor Musakulu as the chairperson of this committee. And in the coming weeks, we will be introducing the other religious leaders that will join him in this committee.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Prince George Mahlangu, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy traffic into Pretoria this morning. It's a double whack of traffic lights out on Eskia and Pathleli. So at Moot and at Putco Depot, both lights are on the fritz, and that's causing a delay as you route out from Pretoria north towards Marabastad. And it's badly backing up traffic on the Mopani Highway approaching Eskia. Mopani Highway R80 backed as far as Theo Martin's already. There's some queues at Durham-Port Plaza. This is unusual on the N4 driving eastbound, making your way, trying to get through to the N1. There's an issue there. We'll keep an eye on that, but it's unusually heavy. Also, some crashes around Joburg now. N3 north at Buccleuch. Big delays getting up from the Edenvale side, from sort of Linksfield Road is where you'll pick that queue up right up to the N1 Buccleuch. Other side of town, a crash coming out of Soweto this morning on the N1 up by Albertina Cecilia Road in the Maresburg area. So pressure leading Soweto on your way towards Veldsvreden Park and Randburg. Durban, please take road safety absolutely seriously this morning. It is bucketing down across the eThekwini region because there's been so much rain. And keep in mind, Durban's already had more than its annual rainfall in just sort of 4 months of this year. Roads are wet, they are slippery with pockets of surface water, flooding and standing water obstructions as well. M13 out of Pinetown, we saw some flooding around Paradise Valley. That's heavy this morning, coming from sort of bottom of Fields Hill all the way through to the N3 highway. Cape Town, weather's fine, but traffic is busy, particularly the N2 inbound from the airport to Mowbray Main Road. The N1 from Plattekloof Hill already backed up through to the Kuiper interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Pressure keeps mounting, and the thirst for maximum points has drastically increased. FC Union Berlin and VfB Stuttgart are in a tense battle for victory. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on FC Union Berlin versus VfB Stuttgart on Saturday, 19 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Spanish Princess series continues the story of Queen Catherine and Henry VIII. Catherine's struggle to produce an heir places her marriage and position in the court at risk, and she's haunted by her choices from the past. Despite proving herself a politician, a diplomat, and a national inspiration, and even a military commander, Catherine must battle to save her love with the king and to preserve the peace and prosperity of their reign. The Spanish Princess Season 2 airs Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
5 minutes to 7. As artificial intelligence, AI tools like ChatGPT become increasingly integrated in many areas of life, including higher education, universities across the country are grappling with how to ensure the ethical use of these tools. While academics acknowledge the potential benefits of AI for learning and research, concerns over plagiarism and academic dishonesty have prompted calls for clear guidelines and responsible usage. So let's speak to Professor Labi Ramrathan, who is an education expert at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Prof, good morning. Thank you for your time. Just tell me about the integration of AI and where you are seeing it in spaces in education, in higher education, where it's being used either ethically or unethically. How prevalent is it now?
Good morning, Tumalani. Its presence is really ubiquitous now within society and in higher education and other educational settings. So it's not a kind of a thing where it's only limited to one set of things. It's now widespread use. We use it in our daily lives, we use it in our academic work and so forth. So it's quite, its presence is everywhere now. Obviously, there are, challenges in the use of it. But, AI has such good affordances that it can be exploited to do a whole range of things. It's possibly the next best thing to a calculator. But how we use it is a matter. And as you mentioned, we need to start thinking about guidelines. But there are a substantial amount of guidelines available in the use of AI technologies. In journals, there is guidelines in terms of how you can reference them. When we do our lectures, we talk to students about how to use it ethically and so forth. But when a student starts to use AI with the idea that I want to cheat, then it becomes a problem.
Are you seeing a lot of that where an entire paper just appears to have been sourced by giving the right prompts to AI, to ChatGPT, to DeepSeek, and say, produce a paper on this subject, citing this author, and that author on that subject? Are you seeing that happening?
We don't see it, quite widespread, but there are a few that take the chances, and it's so easy, detectable. The first port of call is by lecturers. It's so easy to determine, whether a piece of work is machine-produced. So the smoothness in the way in which it is written, the words that are used, which are not, are used often by the person who's the student to say. So there's various ways in which to pick it up. But it's increasingly more so in assignments that are being done. And I think, with the insights of lectures about the content matter, it's very, very easy to pick up.
Yeah. So the difficulty, though, Prof, is talking about guidelines and frameworks such as the one that the UKZN has developed. How do you balance that guideline and framework against this being something that in part will depend on personal integrity, almost like an honor code, that I will be, someone who adheres to the strictest integrity and will not try and cheat and bypass the system? How do you find that balance?
Look, I think every student coming to university has that idea that I want to do the best that I can, that I want to do things with integrity. But, with pressure, with, the need to do well and, perform exceptionally well, we get caught up in this easy way of going. So while the guidelines are there, the moral use, the ethical use of these things still override a lot of people. But it's not used, if someone uses AI technologies in the assignments, it is not that they actually do it with the intent of writing the entire assignment. So there is some sections that they actually try to use their own words or their own insights. And that's where you can actually make up the difference between what they write and what is produced by AI technologies. So the balance is very little, that we can say about the balance, but it's really about, how pressurized the student is to produce something or to, appease a so-called lecturer that I can do things that are quite substantive.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and just weighing in on this fascinating topic. That is Professor Labi Ramratan, who is an education expert at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Brings us to 7 a.m. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, Business Alliance welcomes special envoy appointment and police probe deadly shooting at Walter Sisulu University. Good morning. The Alliance of Business Leaders, Business for South Africa, has described President Cyril Ramaphosa's appointment of a special envoy to the U.S. as a crucial step towards improving relations between South Africa and America. Ramaphosa announced the appointment of Mcebisi Jonas on Monday. The appointment comes as a placement for the position of ambassador to the U.S. is being considered. Jonas gained broad support after testifying at the state capture inquiry, in which he revealed he had rejected the Gupta family's underhanded offer of Finance Minister in 2016. The Alliance CEO, Martin Kingston.
Well, there's no doubt that we need a special envoy, and the President has demonstrated quite clearly his commitment to a reset of the relationship with the United States. And I would argue that that is absolutely crucial at this moment in time when jobs is our primary focus as a country, and the partnership between business and government underscores that critical issue. And the United States is a key trading and investment partner, let alone the broader influence that it has around the world.
One of the accused in the Jocelyn Smith disappearance case will be back in the Western Cape High Court sitting in Saldanha Bay today. Stevino van Ryn will continue to testify in a trial within a trial. The aim is to determine the admissibility of the statements of van Ryn and co-accused Jacqueline Apollos. They claim police tortured and coerced them into making the confessions. Apollos earlier told the court that he lied in his confession statement when he said Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, had instructed him to take the child to a Sangoma, who would pay 20,000 rand. The presiding judge, Nathan Erasmus, questioned Apollos yesterday.
If I understood you now, it's whilst you were telling him the story, you were just making it up on the fly. That's correct, correct, my lord. But do I understand you correctly? So when you went to sit down there next to him, you didn't have a story in your head. You just had the part that the police told you what to say. Why did you find it necessary to add in all that fine detail?
I had made it sound like a story, my lord.
The daughter-in-law of former ANC leader Chief Albert Luthuli will be back in the High Court in Pietermaritzburg this morning to continue to testify in the reopened inquest into his death. Philomena Luthuli testified yesterday that important evidence was not presented in the original inquest. She believes this was an attempt to hide the apartheid government's involvement in his death. She said that she had no doubt that apartheid security police had been closely watching their home.
One would wake up and find a car standing near the hedge. Policemen, black and white, would be seated in the vehicle, just watching our home. If we had a visitor at home, a few minutes later, a special branch police vehicle would be parked outside. There was no doubt that we were watched.
Police in the Eastern Cape say they're investigating an incident in which a person was gunned down and several others wounded at the Walter Sisulu University's Umtata campus. The incident happened during a students' protest yesterday. The students' concerns include a lack of residence accommodation. Police spokesperson Nobuntu Kantana.
The police are still conducting a preliminary investigation. This is to determine the circumstances that led to the shooting, so which would mean that at this stage no arrests have been made and no one has been charged, as we are still trying to investigate and are certain as to what actually transpired and what led to the shooting.
And finally, the U.S. has strongly condemned violence inflicted on civilians and aid workers in placement camps in Western Sudan. Hundreds of thousands of people have fled from the Zamzam camp, which the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces recently captured. A conference in London has called for an immediate ceasefire in Sudan. The UN's George Moreira de Silva is in Port Sudan.
We need peace, but we also need humanitarian aid to be provided at scale and at speed. It's important to find a good negotiation path, to have a genuine dialogue among parties to stop this war. This is probably the largest humanitarian crisis in the world.
Recapping the top story, the Alliance of Business Leaders, Business for South Africa, has described President Cyril Ramaphosa's appointment of a special envoy to the U.S. as a crucial step towards improving relations between South Africa and America. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
You wouldn't want to pay more than you need to for your cell phone bill, so why overpay for car insurance? Switch to Outsurance and you could save big every month. Jermaine, A 43-year-old man is a real OUTsurance client who saves a whopping 360 Rand a month on his 2021 Mazda 3 1.5 Dynamic. Now, that's what I call a real deal. Why pay more? Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very heavy on Joburg's N3 this morning. You might want to take a side road or alternative route to avoid this. The N3 badly backed up from Galuli's all the way up to a crash at Buccleuch interchange. Very heavy. Edenvale, Alex passing Limbro Park and all the way up to the N1 interchange. Other side of town, N1 North coming out of Soweto. A collision there by Maresburg, just by Albertina Sisulu. So quite heavy. Traffic backed up towards Soweto Highway. Very, very slow as you leave that region, heading towards Randburg side this morning. The N4 queuing into Durhanport Plaza, top of Pretoria, the N4 going eastbound towards the N1. That's unusual. Heading out of Pietermaritzburg to Durban, quite a lengthy queue around a stationary truck at Ashburton, so you're dropping into a single lane there. A crash on the N2 North before the M7, so coming out from Umlazi and Chatsworth, that is quite heavy. M4 Southern Freeway, bad through the rain this morning from the N2 right through to sort of Kongela and Umbilo area. It's a long, slow trip up the Southern Freeway. Everything around Durban's pretty slow this morning on account of the very, very heavy, you could call it perhaps torrential rain that's been falling in the region this morning. Cape Town, a lot of pressure on the M7, N7, queuing up from Highlands Drive through Samora Michelle as you get out of Mitchell's Plain. More queues passing Langa to Epping, and then it gets heavy from the casino all the way up through Goodwood towards the N1 highway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's soccer with the Orlando Pirates legend Tebogo Moloi is dreaming big of an all-African CAF Champions League final between Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates. And we've also got Team Siya Kolisi and his Sharks. Well, they're hoping that they can stop Edinburgh's winning momentum. The details just before 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7. Hey, good morning, folks. We are into the second hour of the morning brief on this Wednesday. Just one major story, one major focus really in this hour, and this is the consolidation of various complaints that have been received by the Legal Practice Council against senior advocate Dalim Mpofu over a period of time. Those have now been consolidated and are due to be heard towards the end of this month. Advocate Dalim Mpofu is on standby, and he will be talking to me about those complaints and what is really at play in as far as that issue is concerned. And then a bit later on, we will return to that story coming out of Walter Sisulu University following a shooting incident that happened yesterday and the protests that have been taking place there. Differing versions being presented by the protesting students on the one hand and by the university management on the other hand. One person died there. The account of the university is that that person was not even a student there. But I've heard a number of people questioning even that version. Through it all, please give me a call, weigh in on all of these conversations and any others that may be exercising your mind. I'll take your calls on 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. So let's not waste any time. Let's get on with it. This is the second hour of the morning brief.
Football intelligence will be tested between the students, University of Johannesburg and Tshwane University of Technology. They are both eager to go an extra mile for victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Varsity Derby, UJ Ladies versus TUT Ladies on Sunday 20 April at 11:30 a.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So one of the country's foremost renowned and senior legal counsels Advocate Dalimpofu will later this month face a consolidated inquiry before the Legal Practice Council, that is the Legal Professions Statutory Regulatory Body. The LPC has consolidated several complaints against Advocate Mpofu into a single inquiry aimed at determining whether or not his conduct on various platforms brought the legal profession into disrepute. One of the charges leveled against Mpofu relates to this heated exchange in 2022 with Kubutile Tyanki, the then chairperson of the parliamentary inquiry into Mpofu's then client, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane's fitness to hold office of public protector.
That, the only reason I'm tolerating what you're doing to me is really for the interest of the client. Otherwise, you're not entitled to abuse me like you're abusing me. I'm senior to you in many ways, not just in age, but in many ways, you know it. So you have no right to abuse me. But fine, you've got the power now. You can exercise it, but you will pay one day. But anyway, I was saying, Chairperson, that was the pardon? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Please conclude what you want to say. And attend to my question. I will make a ruling.
No, it's not a threat, as I said. It's a promise. Yeah.
Yeah, so Advocate Dalimpofu joins me now to talk about the process that's about to unfold. Good morning to you, Advocate, and thank you for your time. So the LPC has now the LPC has now brought these charges of misconduct, professional misconduct, against you, 7 in total. Do you consider yourself to be in a fight of your life? The fight to save your career, and are you worried at all about that?
No, good morning to us and your listeners. No, absolutely not. I'm not worried at all at that level. I mean, in my life, I think I've been through things that can worry me during the times of detention and torture and all that. So, no, I'm not worried at all. But also, secondly, I'm not worried because the charges are clearly frivolous and politically motivated, both in their conception by whoever are the complainants, whom I don't know, but also by the LPC itself. I mean, it's understandable for me that the complainants probably are people who are not legally trained. So some of the more laughable charges, you could understand them from that point of view. But that they have gone through legally trained people in the LPC is the most bizarre development of this whole thing. So, as you correctly called them, it's a consolidation of charges. I call it a shopping list of charges because it's a whole lot of unrelated nonsensical things that have been collected over the past 2 or 3 years. And it's not even clear why they waited so long. Yeah.
So let's talk then. I would like for us to go through, as many of the charges as possible, because you describe them as frivolous, and you're saying some of them are laughable. Let's start with the clip that I just played a few seconds ago. Do you regret telling the parliamentary chair of that Section 194 inquiry that, quote, you will pay one day, and actually going on to confirm that it was a threat on your side, and actually going on to say not just a threat but a promise? Surely threats are not model conduct for a legal practitioner?
No, absolutely. I think you know that it's actually what was said there is that it's not a threat. Not what you are saying, that it was not just a threat. Yeah. But anyway, let's not get into that. I'm sure that it will play itself out in the thing. No, absolutely not. I don't regret. Under the same circumstances, your clip starts by saying, I'm tolerating what you are doing to me only for the interest of the client. So if you can't start, any sane human being would then say, what is it that was being done, which I was responding to? And maybe you can play that clip.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, in brief, what was happening there. I had just reported that my client was sick. She had a doctor's certificate and she could not be there that particular morning for the first time in all those months. And these people were insisting that I must tell them what is the sickness, and which I didn't even know myself. And they wanted to continue without her being present.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. And this chap actually muted me while I was talking, and that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And only certain people will understand what I mean when I said to him, I'm senior to him in many respects, because that was not just a political or an age statement. It was also, one that, as I say, will be understood by him.
Yeah.
He understood exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that anyone who knows anything about law will know that that kind of interaction is then dealt with by the chairperson in that particular forum, and that should be the end of it here.
Yeah.
But let's go to the more laughable cluster of charges.
Yeah.
Incident of time.
Which
Because
one?
you
Which
might
one is
not
that?
want to
Yeah.
do. You might not want to do them one by one.
Sure.
But there's a series of charges. Two of them relate to Lumet Donsela. The one relates to Van Lochrenbeck.
Yes.
And
So the
essence of
Thulasizwe Simelane one is the one. The way I understand
No,
it,
there are
Advocate.
two. As I said,
Yeah.
two of them are related to Lumet
Sure.
Donsela, and the one relates to Van Lochrenbeck.
Mm-hmm.
They all, if you take them as one thing, they all relate to, effectively, the theme is that in the cross-examination of those two people, I was trying to discredit them. Now, a student, a first-year law student will tell you that that's the purpose of cross-examination is nothing else but to discredit the witness. So I don't know what kind of lawyers the LPC want. Where they want timid, shrinking violets who do not confront witnesses or do not try to discredit them.
Isn't the problem, though, Advocate Mpofu, that the allegation, I suppose, and the argument will be presented that this was done in a manner that is against the way I was reading the code, Article 3, that talks about, conduct of legal practitioners under the general provisions, and says you have a duty to behave towards your colleagues, and this would be Advocate Madonsela in this instance, whether in private practice or otherwise, with integrity, fairness, and respect, without unfair discrimination, and you will avoid any behavior which is insulting or demeaning.
So who's my colleague here?
In the case of Advocate Thulasizwe Simelane, who is a colleague in the legal profession. So that article that I'm talking to, doesn't it relate to that?
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
firstly, I don't know if she's my colleague, but assuming that she is, then it doesn't really matter the nature of the person. If it's you, Thulas, who's a friend of mine or whatever, it doesn't matter. Once you are a witness in the box, you are a witness in the box. So if I can't cross-examine you because you are my friend or my so-called colleague, then I should say so. But the minute I cross-examine you, you're like any other witness. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
So look, but I'm not really. I don't have to conduct the.
Yes. I understand that.
You see, right here, I'm just telling you my attitude towards this thing. That it, as far as I'm concerned, it's frivolous.
Yeah.
So that's that set of charges. Then there's the other charges which are not really laughable, but are more worrisome to me. From not because of what you're saying about my career.
Yes.
My career doesn't depend on a bunch of racist complainants and their fellow travelers.
Is that who you believe is behind this? A bunch of racist complainants and their fellow travelers?
Absolutely, and certain rogue elements within the LPC of the same ilk. Yeah. So this is what these other charges worry me, as I say, from a different point of view, because they were obviously drafted by people who have not only ulterior or political motives, but people who may even want to embarrass our judiciary, because the one relates to our Chief Justice. The other one relates to the Judge President of the Gauteng Division.
Yes.
And I mean, the one that relates to the Chief Justice is really. It was manufactured by the Mpofu Hating League or whatever you call it. Yeah. at the time. You might remember there were interviews
for the
Chief Justice, and some cracked some ice-breaking joke and so on, and it was elevated deliberately by people that I know in the media to with some fake outrage, as it were.
Yeah.
And now, I think 3 years later, for it to find itself in this piece of paper is really ridiculous. I mean, what do they expect me to do? To call the Chief Justice as a witness in this thing, or the Judge President? All these are issues that are being resurrected from the grave, which have.
But do you regret making that? You're calling it a icebreaker of a joke. Given the dynamics of sexual innuendos and how it all works, because that's the allegation. Do you regret making that joke?
Okay. To last, just so that you don't ask that question again. I do not regret anything that I did that is in that piece of paper. Okay. So just to save you from having to ask it again. Yeah. No, I would do exactly the same thing given the same circumstances, for the reasons which I could explain to you if you had time, or which I will explain to these people. But I'm making a different point. I'm saying anybody who has the interest of the judiciary at heart would know that these things were canvassed and they were exaggerated and so on. But we've all now moved on. So what do you want us to do now? To rehash the rumors about the Judge President in a public forum? To come back and explain how bizarre it is that people can think that of what you're saying? I don't know where the sexual innuendo is, because I just described a situation where the Chief Justice and I were studying mates. So what if I said we spent a day? Would it be better than if I said we spent a night studying? What kind of nonsense is that? I mean, these are people who have perverted minds themselves. I mean, why would you think that there's sexual innuendo in saying people were studying together?
Yeah.
It's only if you yourself are, some of the kind of perverted people that we have in this country.
So I expect, Advocate Mpofu, that as this conversation unfolds, I might hear a perspective that says, and I think I should advance it to you so that you respond to it. I might hear a perspective that says you became emboldened over the years and you kept pushing the envelope of what is acceptable behavior, especially after you were not sanctioned for that incident that happened at the Zondo Commission, where you told Advocate Michelle Leroux and the late Pravin Gordhan to shut up. But that's just one example, and some will talk about your mannerisms and your engagement with judicial officers, where I remember one instance was the Electoral Court, where one of the presiding officers there kept on, calling on you to sort of calm down and sort of to change the manner in which you were engaging with her. So the question is, what do you say to those who say you became emboldened and kept pushing the envelope of what is acceptable behavior?
Yeah, no, that's would be totally incorrect and based on false evidence, such as the thing you're talking about. I don't remember any such thing in the Electoral Court at all. But maybe you do. You can remind me, maybe off air. So it's that kind of thing. You see, it's an impression that is created in minds of people, even including yourself now, by a clearly orchestrated bunch of people who are opposed. Not really to me, to me for my own views, but for some of them, it's because of the kinds of people that I represent, which they hate with a passion. So, but that's deliberate. If you talk about regretting, that's another thing I don't regret, because it's by design. I do represent people whom I know would otherwise, not be represented by other people who care about white approval and, trying to be something that you're not. So if you think of, the kinds of people I've represented recently, Zuma, Sopem, Kwabane, Moyane, Dudu Zuma, that's to some people Those are the worst human beings you can imagine. And I will continue representing such people for reasons which I've explained before.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm probably going to get to a situation where I only represent those kinds of people. So if the motive is to try and dissuade me from doing so, then they're wasting their time, because no lawyer worth his salt will be dictated to by people who hate others. Lawyers are supposed to represent even the West among us. Absolutely. In fact, especially the West among us. That's the message, really. Yeah. And you must do your best, even more particularly for those people.
All right.
That statement was made in the so-called death penalty case of Makwanyane. That even a serial killer represents, rather deserves a proper representation. So that's it. Yeah. So it's either against me for my political views or against those people.
All right.
And I will not be deterred by this frivolity. If anything, I will use it as a platform to highlight what a real lawyer should be. And I will do so,
Right.
So to me, it only has a nuisance value, this whole thing, quite frankly.
All right.
And,
Advocate
but it's one to be expected with people in my position.
Thank you for speaking to me this morning. That's Senior Advocate Dalimpofu there, talking about the processes about to unfold before the Legal Practice Council.
Not all MBAs are created equal. At Henley Business School Africa, we deliver career growth and advancement that goes beyond borders. As South Africa's only global business school, our internationally accredited MBA connects you to 100,000 global alumni leaders. Ranked number 1 in the world by The Economist for alumni network power, Henley is your gateway to a global career and the confidence to lead anywhere. Ready to make your mark? Visit henleysa.ac.za.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. We've been hearing a bit from the Orlando Pirates legend, Tebogo Moloi.
Yes, Moloi wants a Mzansi versus Mzansi CAF showdown. And could he be getting one? Let's hope. Well, he says that the league could be a blockbuster. That's the CAF Champions League with an all-South African final, hoping it will be between Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns. But first, the Buccaneers have to navigate Pyramids FC starting this Saturday at Orlando Stadium. Moloi also praised coach Jose Rivero's young squad, calling them special and capable of going all the way. With Rivero set to depart at the end of the season, Moloi says Pirates must give him a send-off worthy of the black and white badge and maybe, just maybe, bring the star back home. Now, Stellenbosch FC had a narrow but deserved 1-0 win over Amazulu at the Dani Craven Stadium to rise to third place in the Betway Premiership. Sanele Barnes scored the only goal of the game as Stellies warmed up for their CAF Confed Cup semi-final, with the result which saw them leapfrog both TS Galaxy and Sekakuna United. Meanwhile, Usutu suffered a fourth defeat from their last 5 league outings. They remain 7th on the log. Rugby, the Sharks are heading into Scottish waters this Friday against Edinburgh, and Edinburgh, who've already taken down the Bulls and the Lions, have said that they want a clean sweep of the South African teams. But Siya Kolisi and his Springbok heavy squad want to stop Edinburgh going 3 for 3. With the URC playoffs heating up, Edinburgh are clinging to 8th, while the Sharks, with 4 matches left, are still eyeing a top 3 finish and a home quarter final. It's all going down in the Scottish capital. That's Friday around 8:30. And finally, cricket. The Punjab Kings set an Indian Premier League record for the lowest total successfully defended as they beat the Kolkata Knight Riders by 16 runs. Chasing 112 to win, KKR looked on course for victory at 72 for 3, but a collapse of 7 wickets for 23 runs in 36 balls meant they were bowled out for 95 in 15.1 overs. And let's bring this story in. Our veteran swimmer Erin Gallagher welcomes being amongst the 7 South Africans who achieved qualifying times for the World Aquatic Championship set for Singapore in July. She did say, though, she had a relaxed approach to her racing.
I really just wanted to try a relaxed approach because every time that I've gone into the race taking it too seriously, it kind of hasn't gone my way. So I was like, you know what, this is my last chance. I might as well enjoy it. And the 50s I was splashing dash. At least I didn't have to come back for another 50. So I put everything I had into it, and I was just really, really happy to see that 25.
That's a wrap. More sport. We'll swim back at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa says 66 bodies that were retrieved from disused mines in Stilfontein in the northwest are still unclaimed from mortuaries. A total of 78 bodies were retrieved from underground months ago. The Alliance of Business Leaders, Business for South Africa, has described President Cyril Ramaphosa's appointment of a special envoy to the U.S. as a crucial step towards improving relations between South Africa and America. And the daughter-in-law of former ANC leader Chief Albert Luthuli will be back in the High Court in Pietermaritzburg this morning to continue to testify in the reopened inquest into his death. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, Joburg heavy both sides of the city this morning with crashes on the N3 north at Buccleuch interchange. That's a heavy queue that you'll pick up at Galuli's. Other side of town, there's a crash on the N1 north at Albertina Cecilia Road. So coming out of Soweto from Soweto Highway, it's all heavily backed up on your way through to Ridderport and Randburg. N12 is bad today. Big queues of traffic from Snake Road, leaving Benoni through to round about Atlas Road Bridge in the Boksburg area, and the Allendale Road under pressure, leaving Tembisa. A crash near Carstenoff Clinic, holding traffic up towards the Midrand area. Pretoria's N4, just expect some delays heading towards the N1. This is the Rustenburg Highway, if you like. The N4 coming into Durham-Port Plaza. Major delay alert there. A lot of traffic lights down at Gazina, holding up on Steve Biko, Johan Haynes, and a crash further down on Hamilton Street, just by Stanzimore Papi. So that's quite slow as well. Durban, everything on the go slow, jam-packed because of the wet weather conditions. The rain may have eased. It was torrential earlier today. It's left some flooding pockets on the M4 Southern Freeway, so that's very slow as you come up from the N2 in towards Congella. There's a crash on the N2 north before the M7. Heavy backlogs there from the Chatsworth on-ramp. And if you're coming out of Pietermaritzburg, just a single lane open at Ashburton due to a stationary truck, and that's a really big queue up of traffic today. Cape Town, N7 north, Goodwood through to Bosmansdam Road, jam-packed again this morning. And Marine Drive, if you're just about to leave that Tableview area, currently sitting from Bayside Mall in Tableview all the way through to Racecourse Road and the paddocks at Milnerton. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The business update on SAFM.
Darling, good morning to you once again. So for this update, let's focus a bit on mining. Tell me about mining output and how it declined in February.
So the local mining sector continues to struggle and continues to, struggle to make a comeback to last decreasing 9.6% year on year in February due to a decline in platinum group metals output. Now, PGM production plunged nearly a quarter in February, and according to Hugo Bernard, who's the chief economist at the Minerals Council SA, the PGM sector's performance reflects an uncertain demand environment and depressed prices, largely being attributed to U.S. tariffs and the growing presence of EVs. Now, the U.S. tariffs, including a 25% duty on auto imports, pose a threat to the PGM sector. The World Platinum Investment Council estimates that such tariffs could reduce platinum and palladium demand by 70,000 ounces and 269,000 ounces, respectively. Iron ore output also contributed to the decline in mining production, dropping 10.5%, and this mainly due to logistical constraints. Now, given the sector's poor performance in the first 2 months of the year, it is likely to record a quarterly decline in the first quarter.
And then sticking with the theme, Dowling, tell me about Exxaro and their expectations around coal. Is it the message that if you thought coal is dead, then you are completely wrong?
That's absolutely right, Thulas. The miner remains optimistic about coal this year, driven by favorable market dynamics and potential disruptions to global energy investment due to the U.S. administration. Now, the company forecasts tight supply in coal markets due to sanctions on Russian producers and Chinese expansionary policy supporting near-term demand. Now, this expected demand supported from China, the world's largest coal consumer, would likely benefit coal prices, even though South Africa is not a major supplier to China. U.S. policies in the meantime aimed at boosting domestic coal production and cutting back on renewables could temporarily disrupt long-term trends driven by investment in renewable energy. Now, the U.S. president's executive order to designate coal as a critical mineral and lift barriers on U.S. coal mining may provide additional support for the industry. In the short term, Exxaro expects supply pressures and geopolitical factors to outweigh trends driven by the broader energy transition, sustaining market demand, particularly in regions reliant on imported coal for energy security. Now, despite Exxaro's optimism, global coal imports fell to their lowest quarterly level in 3 years in the first quarter, and the spot price of coal has given up 23.7% since the start of the year, putting pressure on local coal producers.
All right, Dowling, please give us another roundup of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
Kicking things off in Asia, stock markets downbeat following the negative cues from Wall Street overnight. This as traders remain cautious amid the continuing uncertainty around, the size and the scope of the new reciprocal tariffs on imports into the U.S. and the lingering concerns over the effects of U.S.-China trade war continues to weigh on market sentiment. With that, we are seeing the Hong Kong Hang Seng down the most on that front, giving up 2.4%. In the U.S., futures in the red. Investors there eyeing retail sales figures, which are out today, as well as more earnings reports. Then coming back home, markets closing in positive territory yesterday, with the all share gaining 0.9%. The rand, however, on the back foot this morning. It is sitting at 19.03 to the dollar. This as we started seeing some strength in the greenback coming through.
That's Dowling Lichela. Look out for one more update from Dowling, and that's coming up after 8:30, in which update she will also give you a sense of the kind of trading day you can expect on this Wednesday.
The Blue Diamonds want to shine all the way from kickoff to the final whistle, while the Rockets plan to rock up with a strong winning mentality. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Experience the exciting battle between JVWFC and Tears Galaxy Queens on Sunday 20 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, lots of reaction, particularly to the conversation we had just a short while ago at the start of this hour with Advocate Dalim Mpofu ahead of the processes about to unfold before the Legal Practice Council. 1 or 2 voice notes, and then I'll take some calls.
Hi, very good morning, Thulas. Johnson here in Bombela. To Dalim Mpofu, all I can say to you, my brother, be strong. There are those who are gunning for you because of who you represent in court in most of the times, controversial figures. Yeah, so we know why they hate you so much. They'll bring all sort of things now because we know, former number one, your sin is representing former number one. We all know, the country knows. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that was part of the argument that Advocate Dalim Mpofu was advancing, that all of this is frivolous, but also largely politically motivated, as well as, he says, motivated by racism.
Jambo Africa! Good morning, Thulas. Good morning to your team. Great show always. It's good to hear your voice. It's Uncle JJ, the tank driver in Worcester, Western Cape. You see, Dalim Mpofu is stubborn, too talkative, full of I know. He behaves like he is not a professional on his career. So there's nothing I can support on him. This guy is stubborn, yes.
Yeah, so diametrically opposed views there and reflections on Advocate Dalimpofu. So let me take some calls and hear what's on your mind. Let me start with Jacques in Durban. Jacques, good morning. You also want to talk about Advocate Dalimpofu and the processes in the LPC.
Good morning to you and your team. Again, what an excellent job that you all do for us as a community and as a country. So thank you, first of all, to you all and your show.
Thank you.
Going back to what Mr. Mpofu said, I think Mr. Mpofu should understand that I'm happy that he recognizes that other black people can be racist as well to other black people, because what he says about the political stance and the stance that he's taken, he should understand that it was him that actually got himself into the political arena on his own accord. So he chose to take these political cases, and obviously he has to roll with the punches, which I'm happy to see that he recognizes. The other thing is that I've always maintained that the ANC themselves create their own opposition, and that's why majority of their supporters are actually moving away from them. And the other thing is that he started off his conversation by saying that, he's been interrogated or hurt or basically been injured when he was being interrogated. I think that's what I was given to understand, or I understood from his statements. And I think that I think he's a very hurt man. I think he hasn't, forgiven what has happened. Unfortunately, according to the profession that he's chosen, you are innocent until proven guilty. So where he brings up his feelings, the law unfortunately doesn't take that into account. It's basically the facts and actual events of a case or anything that goes forward. So unfortunately, like I said, he's muddling the two up, and that's the profession he's chosen, and he has all right to his opinion.
All right, Jack,
thank you
for that. Let me move on to Mbongeni in Enadale. Good morning to you, Mbongeni, also on the same issue.
A very good morning, Honorable Thulas, and to the listeners of ACFM community. Good show indeed, as usual.
Thank you.
I want to respond to Senior Counsel Mpofu for the fact that the response that he gave you was absolutely very poor. He never responded anything that you were asking. A simple question in the fact of legal profession as colleagues, and he dodged to that question. He explained something else that, as an interpreter, I couldn't understand him. Secondly, he is unruly, and we have seen him in his presentation when he appeared in the court, even in the disciplinary committee of African National Congress. He has actually misled two leaders that are high-profile figures of political discourse in the country. For example, he lost a case of Honorable Malema. He also misled Honorable Isma Khashule while he was against the constitution of the African National Congress. So for me, Advocate Mpofu doesn't respect any constituency, his behavior in the court of law. We can recall many things even when we're doing Marikana case, when he was interviewing the president sitting now, President Ramaphosa, yes, in Marikana issues. You can see that he's very.
But Mbongeni, yes. Let me ask you this question. Isn't his behavior, par for the cause in terms of the rigor with which a legal practitioner, especially a senior advocate, an advocate of that seniority, is supposed to represent his client? Are you not supposed to be to fight tooth and nail, to go in like a bulldog in fighting for your client? So I'm asking, does he then, in your view, as an outsider, breach those bounds that say fight tenaciously for your client?
Look, I don't want to lie even to the listeners and to the country. Senior counsel, on his presentation every time, he even when he put his argument, it's just against anything. I think even when he's in the gallery, or not necessarily in the stand for the court, you could see that the man, his response is more on political discourse and not responding to whatever to present his client in a very positive way. So for me, it's very unruly, absolutely unruly.
All right, Morgan, thank you for that. Let me move on. Ntantla in KwaZulu-Natal, good morning. You want to talk about the same topic?
Good morning. One thing I'm going to put on the table is that lawyers are being restricted to express themselves by all the restrictions that we're talking about. In this country, most black people are being restricted to express themselves how they see. Mostly in the low sector, as if you can see how the black lawyers are being treated compared to the white lawyer. So in all the time, we are going to be found ourselves in this situation because we fail to express ourselves the way how we feel. We are being told how we must express ourselves and what we mustn't say. But rather, when you, as a person who likes to read most of the law books, South Africa has been it's like we are being held hostage with some of the laws, and the violation of some of the laws that gets to happen. And the same lawyers that keeps on blaming Advocate Mpofu, they'll never come up and say there is a violation of the Constitution.
Yeah, all right.
But when one of them stood up and tried to stood for Constitution, they will attack him.
All right.
Thank you, Mafrak.
Thank you for that. That's Nhlanhla in KZN. Let me shift focus a little bit and take a call from Aubrey in Tshwane. Good morning to you, Aubrey. You want to talk about the work that the CRL Commission has been doing around churches?
Sure. Thank you, Tulas, and good morning to you. Yes, just a quick one. This particular CRL Commission, remember in the past, they came to Parliament after they did consultations with churches and other stakeholders as well. And Parliament told them to go back, that they didn't do a thorough consultation. They must go back to consult again the church. And that never materialized as far as I can remember. But when they come back now, they come back with a different proposition to say now they want to do a peer review mechanism, which they didn't consult the church again on this particular one. And then again, they appoint more like a reverend who is more inclined to their narrative. It was not much more consultation as to how they brought the guy or the bishop that they brought or the reverend. And then also, why only Christianity? Why don't do a peer review mechanism on every religious institution? Like you have Islam, you have also traditional healers. There's issues there as well where in some instances, sangomas are mutilating whatever people and so on and so forth. Why not regulate the entire space? Why only target the churches? Because also the issues of Motoso and Bushiri and the like, those pure criminality. There's nothing to do with the church. The law enforcement agencies must do their job and not pin that on the church for the failures of government. And then also, maybe the last point is that when I read the article yesterday on Sowetan Live, the chairperson said that the church is not accountable. That's not true. The church is an MPO. It's already accountable to the MPO Act. The church pays taxes where necessary, your income taxes, so on and so forth. So already it's accountable to the laws. The church is also accountable to the bylaws of the municipalities and so on and so forth. So what accountability are they looking for?
Aubrey, thank you for that. All I can say is that I actually covered those hearings quite extensively, and the issues that you are raising about accountability, adhering to bylaws, etc., they were raised and canvassed at those hearings, including this concept of a peer review mechanism. That's where it really has its roots, in those hearings of around 2015, 2016, and 2017. As to the rest of the processes followed, I cannot weigh in intelligently on that. Let's leave it there for now then. Let me move to Wonga in Matatiele. Good morning to you, Wonga. You want to talk to me about load reduction?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to SAFM listeners. Thulasizwe, now we are my suffering. Since the end of load shedding, what the 23 Matatiele, 24, 15, 10, 18, 17, we get the load reduction each and every day. 5 in the a.m. until 7 o'clock. The following day is going to 5 in the evening until 7 p.m. This also includes Ward 12 of a London municipality, Ward 11, Ward 13, and Ward 10. I don't know. So I'm starting to suspect or believe that this load reduction by Untate Sputla, the minister, is only targeting the rural areas. We cannot be subject to that. Sometimes you've got a meeting at 6 o'clock, just an example, a Zoom meeting. You cannot connect, the pole of Vodacom is off, the MTN pole is off. You are supposed to be sitting in town and then start driving very, very late after that. So I don't know how you can assist us and then check. We are suffering here in Matatiele under ESCOM or under Ntate Spuka
Yeah.
This is not on.
Wonga, thank you for that. I mean,
yeah,
no, I can hear the description. It sounds to me like you have electricity for just a few hours in a day, and that is no way to live. The whole concept of load reduction has been debated at length, and I think at one point there was a suspension of load reduction, and then there was talk about even the communication of when load reduction would be implemented. It is always a ripe conversation for us to pick up with Eskom and talk to them about it. Thank you for that. I'll take more of your calls, Zoe and Mbuyisa, if I can ask that we call you back a little bit later so you can weigh in on the conversations here on the show.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
So, an update on the N3 in Joburg. A crash this morning up at the N1 Beclu interchange. Happened much earlier. The traffic coming out from sort of Germiston via Bedfordview via Galulis is under pressure. Because of that, you'll pick up the queue really well. It's a double whack because you get the normal queue from Elands to towards Galulis, and then from Galulis all the way through to Beclu. It's very heavy. Also a breakdown on the N3 south at Van Buren causing some delays. The N12 out of Benoni through Boksburg. That is heavy this morning as you go slowly between Snake Road at a point just after Atlas Road towards Rondebolt Road. Crash on the A1 north at Albertina Sisulu in the Maresburg area. Traffic coming out from Deepcliff passing Soweto. Very heavy on your way through towards the Rudaport and Randburg area today. Crash on Allendale Road between Tembisa and Midrand. That by Mastiff Road, and that's still very slow heading towards the Midrand area this morning. Pretoria, the N4, very heavy queues into Doornpoort Plaza. If you're on the N4, this is the Rustenburg Highway, the Bequena Highway, if you like, moving in towards the Doornpoort Plaza, trying to get through to the N1. You might want to take alternative routes and avoid that one. A lot of flooding around the greater eThekwini region this morning due to torrential rains that we had earlier. Pinetown has been particularly hard hit, so there's a lot of congestion in Pinetown around some flooded roads. The M4 between Jacobs and Kongela has pockets of flooding. N2 north, a crash before the M7. Very heavy queues from the Higginson Highway. And if you do that run, Wakesley Road, Bel Air Road, up past Chief Abelatuli towards Rick Turner, some very heavy traffic backlogging going on there this morning as well. Cape Town, crash in Athlone, Jan Smuts and Klipfontein Road. There are delays on all approaches into that junction as we speak. And if you're out around Somerset West, there's no traffic lights this morning. N2 at the busy Victoria Street quite badly backed up, as well as some delays on the highway getting through that junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Football intelligence will be tested between the students, University of Johannesburg and Tshwane University of Technology. They are both eager to go an extra mile for victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Varsity Derby, UJ Ladies versus TUT Ladies on Sunday 20 April at 11:30 a.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You wouldn't want to pay more than you need to for your cell phone bill, so why overpay for car insurance? Switch to Outsurance and you could save big every month. Jermaine, a 43-year-old man, is a real Outsurance client who saves a whopping 360 Rand a month on his 2021 Mazda 3 1.5 Dynamic. Now, that's what I call a real deal. Why pay more? Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take some of your voice notes and calls as well. A lot of you still reacting to the conversation we had earlier on with Advocate Dalimpofu.
Good morning, Thulas. Stalent speaking here. Thulas, I'm also, since I heard some of these things Dalimpofu saying by himself, he's undermining other people, other judges, other advocates, whatsoever. He's so undermining this guy. I really don't like him now. Not because of Zuma or stuff or whatsoever, but he undermines other people. He's too big now.
All right, let me speak to Temba in KwaZulu-Natal. Good morning. Also on the same topic.
Hey, Thulas, how are you, my coach?
Good, how are you, sir?
Good. Thulas, I've got one concern in this Advocate Bofu's matter. And I want to share my my feeling on it.
Sure.
I'm not in defense of him.
Yes.
But if I, on a corporate structure, if I've done wrong today, I get disciplined today.
Mm-hmm.
If I do wrong next day, I get disciplined the same day. Now, if you're going to consolidate based on what I've done 3 years, how can you then stop the perception that suggests that you've been planning to collect these cases for me, then deal with me? If you then move that way, legally you're being emotional and being personal. Because if he has done something to undermine within the interview of the judge, it should have been dealt with at
Immediately.
that time.
Yeah.
Immediately. Now, if you leave this thing to accumulate to a lot of things, then you force us independent and say, hold on. If this guy was wrong, why you left him 3 years ago? Why are you dealing with him now? Aren't you personal now?
Yeah. So to you, this
because
speaks
now,
to a sense of orchestration. Yeah.
Now it validates him when you say this thing is orchestrated, because he said, but I've done wrong then. I should have been disciplined then. I've done wrong 2 years ago, disciplined then. If you leave it now, it suggests to us you're planning to have enough of it, consolidate it, then deal with him.
All right, Temba, thank you for that. That's one of the questions we will pose to the Legal Practice Council when we get a chance to actually engage with them. Let me take a call from Maria in Springbok. Good morning to you, Maria. Also on the same topic.
Good morning, Tulas.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Just to Dalim Pofu, Tulas, I want to say you must stay strong. I personally, and I'm sure a lot of other people, envy him and his style. It is very true that the law fraternity in our country did not change as yet. They're also working most of the time against us. So he must just hang in there. Justice will prevail one day.
Yeah. So there's a lot in what he is saying that you identify with when he addresses the systemic issues around regulation and the potential of abuse of regulation.
That's correct, Tulas.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's
all right.
correct.
Maria, thank you for that. That's Maria in Springbok. Let me take a call from Ralph in KwaZulu-Natal. Good morning to you, Ralph. You want to talk to me about the CRL Commission?
Yes, good morning, Tulas. Not only about that, but all other such investigations that have been carried out with no result. Would we be calling or asking for too much from you if we say some of the things?
Yo, Ralph, the line is really bad. No, we're battling. Let's call you back, Ralph, so that we get the full benefit of the conversation with you, so that we hear the point that you're trying to make. I was hearing you saying, would it be asking too much of us if you were to ask us to? Then we just completely lost you. So hopefully we can get you back and get your point in full. Let me speak to Pule in Matlosana. Good morning to you, Pule. You also want to weigh in on Advocate Dalim Pofu.
Yes, Tulas, I've been a follower of cases of senior counsel Dalim Pofu.
Yes.
And if you check the track record, for the past 5 years, if I remember well, there's no single case that Dalim Pofu successfully won in court.
That can't be true, Pule. I don't have the facts and figures right now, but it surely can't be true that he hasn't won a single case. And I suppose someone can set us straight.
The case that
prominent
I remember,
ones, maybe. Yeah.
No, the case that I remember, it was the case of the former speaker, deputy speaker of parliament, Kandi Modise, the farm case in Potchefstroom. I was in Potchefstroom listening to that case. Potch is not far from where I live, where I stay. And Zuma, Mbeki, not Mbeki, the senior counsel several times was called to order by the judge president. Do you remember when he said there's a Zuma law? I don't know where did he study his law, where there's no Zuma law. And the judge president, Maya, by that time, kept on reprimanding him about where do you get that there's a Zuma law? There's nothing like the Zuma law, you know. So then, and his temperament in court is uncalled for. The manner in which, even now when we're interviewing him, he keeps on speaking against you. You know, throwing himself in your mouth. So the manner in which he behaved when he's interviewed is outrageous.
Yeah,
it's not right. Even today, I was listening from the beginning. When you were interviewing him, he didn't even give me a chance sometimes to continue asking him questions.
No, that's that. All right, I get the point you're making, Bullet. Thank you for that. But all I can say is that, I mean, the whole point of an interview is that it is meant to be robust and engaging, such that I try and push him, he tries to push me back. I put propositions to him, and he pushes back. So I don't know if much turns on the interaction from this morning. But the point you are making about the cases you've been observing is well and truly made, and it's well taken. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news.
In our top stories, bodies of Stilfontein illegal miners remain unclaimed, and Business Alliance welcomes special envoy appointment. Good morning. The General Industries Workers Union of South Africa says 66 bodies that were retrieved from disused mines in Stilfontein in the northwest are still unclaimed from mortuaries. A total of 78 bodies were retrieved from underground months ago. The union is supporting the bereaved families in the processes of identifying and repatriating the bodies of their loved ones. Union President Mametlwe Sibei.
Makua in particular have also advanced funds, which I think were also complemented by donations from the Stilfontein Solidarity Committee to assist families with transport and other logistical costs of commuting, as well as traveling between different mosques to identify, the corpses that were recovered.
Meanwhile, community leader Johannes Kankase says he's concerned about families that have lost breadwinners.
Most of the people that are not working, they're unemployed. The only source of income and the source of them that they can bring food to the table. It was that job that they were doing. Regardless, it was illegal, but they were surviving out of it. But now I cannot say the government in that aspect. Humanitarian aid for families who lost their loved ones. Because these people are in need of food, they are in need of clothes, they are in need of many things.
The Alliance of Business Leaders, Business for South Africa, has described President Cyril Ramaphosa's appointment of a special envoy to the U.S. as a crucial step towards improving relations between South Africa and America. Ramaphosa announced the appointment of Mcebisi Jonas on Monday. The appointment comes as a placement for the position of ambassador to the U.S. is being considered. Jonas gained broad support after testifying at the state capture inquiry, in which he revealed he had rejected the Gupta family's underhanded offer of finance minister in 2016. The Alliance CEO, Martin Kingston.
Well, there's no doubt that we need a special envoy, and the President has demonstrated quite clearly his commitment to a reset of the relationship with the United States, and I would argue that that is absolutely crucial at this moment in time when jobs is our primary focus as a country, and the partnership between business and government underscores that critical issue. And the United States is a key trading and investment partner, let alone the broader influence that it has around the world.
The daughter-in-law of former ANC leader Chief Albert Luthuli will be back in the High Court in Pietermaritzburg this morning to continue to testify in the reopened inquest into his death. Philomena Luthuli testified yesterday that important evidence was not presented in the original inquest. She believes this was an attempt to hide the apartheid government's involvement in his death. She said that she had no doubt that apartheid security police had been closely watching their home.
One would wake up and find a car standing near the hedge. Policemen, black and white, would be seated in the vehicle, just watching our home. If we had a visitor at home, a few minutes later, a special branch police vehicle would be parked outside. There was no doubt that we were watched.
And finally, the International Organization for Migration says Haiti faces one of the most complex and urgent crises in the world. The organization's head, Amy Pope, says gang violence and instability have displaced more than 1 million people. She has urged the international community to support the Caribbean country. The BBC's Peter Galvin reports.
Speaking in the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince, the IOM chief said criminal gangs now control vast sections of the city. Many families have been forced to flee several times in a matter of weeks, leaving them without access to shelter or water. The UN says more than 1,500 Haitians were killed in the first 3 months of this year, a result of gang attacks, operations by security forces, and other violence. Observers say gangs have ransacked homes, committed acts of sexual violence, and executed men, women, and children.
Recapping the top story, the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa says 66 bodies that were retrieved from disused mines in Stilfontein in the northwest are still unclaimed from mortuaries. A total of 78 bodies were retrieved from underground months ago. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still jam-packed on Joburg's N3 North this morning. It's this earlier crash that we've been detailing. N3 at Buccleuch. Traffic very heavy from Germiston. From Heldenase interchange, you'll pick up a queue right up to Buccleuch interchange all the way through. Crash between Atlas Road and Rondebolt Road on the N12 westbound. Very heavy coming out of Benoni on your way through to Boksburg this morning. And the other side of town, that collision on the M1 North at Albertina Sisulu Road in Maresburg, still causing a big delay passing Soweto on your way north towards Ridderport and Randburg. There's a crash coming out of Pretoria, N1 South, just past the R21, so from Rigel Avenue it all gets backed up. And a reminder, the N4 East in towards Duranport Plaza, heading towards the N1. Very heavy backlogging going on out there as well. Nasty crash at Mandini, northern parts of KZN along the N2. It's just a timely reminder that wet roads are dangerous roads. It looks like another high-speed crash, unfortunately. A lot of damage to the vehicles there. The N2 North, a pile-up before the M7 Bluff exit. If you're coming through from the Umalazi Chatsworth area, traffic remains slow into that. The first of today's breakdowns at Cliffdale, automatically popping a queue back as far as Key Ridge. Flooding in central Ladysmith after some heavy rains as well to watch out for. And Cape Town, a collision on Jan Smuts Drive and Clipfontein Road, Athlone side. Jan Smuts going north and coming south off the N2, quite heavily backed up into that. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. Let's look at rugby with the South African teams eyeing a full URC sweep in the season's final stretch. And Stellenbosch FC still celebrating as they jump to third place. And that's victory over Amazulu at the Dani Craven Stadium. All this and more just before 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 8 on this Wednesday, we are into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It is great to be in your company this morning. So, lots of conversations that we've started in the last 2 hours, and we will continue to take your calls and your reflections on these issues on the number 086 000 2032. Also, your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. The standout topic of the morning is that interview and conversation we had with Advocate Dalimpofu, where he was stating his side and his views about the processes that are about to unfold before the Legal Practice Council, which has consolidated a number of complaints against him and now has formulated 7 charges of professional misconduct. And that hearing is due for the 30th of April. So a lot of you responding and reacting to that conversation. But also there was the earlier conversation we had with Prince George Mahlang, with the Deputy Chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission, about the work that they've been doing around Christianity, Christian churches, and their concerns about the lack of regulation. And summed up really, a part of what they found is that anyone can wake up tomorrow and start a church with not much regulation, with not much accountability to anyone. And they're saying they're not seeking to regulate religion, but what they are seeking is to ensure that there's some accountability mechanism for those who lead churches. So peer accountability peer review mechanism. They've now put in place a committee that is meant to kickstart all of that. Those are some of the highlights from this morning. In the next few minutes, we'll be talking social grants, particularly the Social Relief of Distress Grant and the systemic weaknesses that the Institute for Economic Justice says they've uncovered. That conversation coming up in just a moment. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Pressure keeps mounting and the thirst for maximum points has drastically increased. FC Union Berlin and VfB Stuttgart are in a tense battle for victory. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on FC Union Berlin versus VfB Stuttgart on Saturday, 19 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
At 11 minutes past 8, let's turn our attention to this story. A recent report by the Institute for Economic Justice, the IEJ, has revealed significant flaws in the administration of the country's COVID-19 Social Relief of Distress Grant, the SRD. Nearly half of approved beneficiaries say they experience irregular payments, while millions of eligible individuals are excluded due to technical, administrative, and design flaws in the system. So let's speak to Kel Hausen, who is Labour and Social Security Senior Researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So I suppose this builds on the case and the judgment that came through in January that talked about the systemic exclusions that have been baked into the application and qualifying procedure for the SRD grant. But just tell me the work that you did, the sample size, and what some of the findings have been.
Sure. So yes, it certainly does build on that case and in many ways validates the challenge that was brought in the High Court. What we did was that we wanted to actually get empirical evidence to show exactly how people are being excluded from the grant. So we already know that 18 million are eligible for the grant and only 8.5 are getting it each month, but we didn't have data to show exactly where in the grant application process that exclusion is happening. So we did a survey of 900 people who were living below the poverty line and who were in the eligible age range for the grant, but had experienced exclusion in at least 1 month of a 3-month period. And we asked them about their experience with trying to get the grant, if they had applied, if they had experienced payment issues. And we also performed an independent assessment of their eligibility. So we, using the existing grant criteria, determined whether our survey respondents were eligible for the grant, and that allowed us to determine if they had been what we've called erroneously excluded, so excluded even though they should qualify.
So a key feature that stood out for me is the intermittent payment. That's not what you want to hear when with the understanding of how crucial this grant is at the coalface of fighting poverty and hunger. What's behind the intermittence that you observed among some grant recipients?
Sure. So amongst people who had had their grant application approved, we found that 44% weren't receiving payment in the month, in the relevant month. And as you say, this is a serious concern because these are people who've managed to navigate the application process, the verification process, and finally been approved for the grant, and they're not actually receiving it. And there are a lot of complex barriers to receiving payment. we found that people who had lower levels of internet access struggled more to receive their payment of the grant, and people who had lower access to the formal banking sector, bank accounts, etc. And the other big driver of non-payment was the biometric verification system that SASA has implemented, whereby you need to be able to upload a photo, a good quality photo of yourself that can be matched to a photo in the Home Affairs database by facial recognition software. This is only possible if you have a smartphone, a camera-enabled smartphone, internet access, and critically, a smart ID card. It doesn't work for holders of green ID books. So this barred many of our respondents from being able to access their entitlements.
Sure. So that over-reliance on digital means of application and just the whole system going quite digital, was that a key feature that you observed? I remember that you made the arguments in the court case that was the case.
Yes. There's been this very rapid digitalization of the grant system, the SID grant system. And one such issue is that people are only allowed to apply online for the grant. They can't go to the SASA office and conduct their grant administration. This sets the SID grant apart from all the other social grants, but SASA and the DSD have signalled that they'd like to move towards this online-only process for other grants as well. And it's extremely exclusionary. We know that about 20% of the population does not have have internet access. That's based on the last General Household Survey. And of course, those people who lack internet access are much more likely to be vulnerable and the exact group that's in need of social assistance.
I want to pull, sorry, Kel, just one more thread that I'd like us to pull at this morning. The flow of information, accurate information, empowering information that allows people to then conduct their applications and to assess whether or not they're eligible. That was another problematic area you found.
It certainly was. We found that a lot of people who hadn't applied for the grant despite being eligible either didn't know that they could apply for the grant or didn't know they were eligible or didn't have faith in the system. So they thought perhaps they might be eligible, but they didn't believe that they would receive the grant just due to a lack of faith in government agencies. And another compounding issue is that the application system is only available in English. So people who have lower levels of English proficiency experience higher barriers. And then the communications, the public communications from SASA and the DSD about how to access this entitlement are often contradictory, they're not regular, they create a great degree of confusion. And so there's a knowledge gap there that's stopping people from even taking up this entitlement in the first place.
So what's the call to action, Kel, given the context where the government has said that they will be seeking to appeal that judgment from January, the High Court judgment, that would have the effect of increasing the number of people who are eligible for the SRD grant. But in that context, what can be fixed within the system from what you've observed? We've
offered a range of policy recommendations in the report, some of which are very simple and can be implemented quite quickly, things like making the application system available in languages other than English. But this systemic exclusion is underpinned by the fact that insufficient resources have been allocated to the grant. So the National Treasury has set a budget cap, an arbitrary budget cap, that only allows the grant to go to 8.5 million people per month. And so all of these barriers and obstacles to access have functioned to prevent disbursements going over that budget cap. So fundamentally, there needs to be a greater resourcing of the grant so that it can reach everybody who needs it. The means test must be increased from 624 Rand per month, which is below the food poverty line. it must be increased to the upper bound poverty line in order to ensure that everybody who is in poverty can access this assistance.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Kel Hausen, who is Labour and Social Security Senior Researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice.
Football intelligence will be tested between the students, University of Johannesburg and Tshwane University of Technology. They are both eager to go an extra mile for victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Varsity Derby, UJ Ladies versus TUT Ladies on Sunday 20 April at 11:30 a.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me take more of your calls. Let me take this voice note. It has to do with universities, of course, in the context of the protests and the shooting incident that occurred at the Walter Sisulu University in Mthatha.
Good morning, Dr. Thulas. Dr. Thulas, you see how cases are bungled by the SAPS and the investigating officers. A simple case like this one, whereby there's a register at the university of students. Was this person part of the university? Was this person part of the staff? A simple case like this one can take months to investigate something that is very simple like this. How come?
Yeah. No, it's a pity we battled to get a hold of the university representative that we were meant to speak to, because that was one of the issues that we wanted to canvass about the registration status of this person who's now deceased. Not that it should matter in terms of the issue itself, the incident being investigated criminally by the police and making a determination whether a crime that should be prosecuted has occurred. But, just that, because I saw a lot of people talking about how they just don't trust the system. So that mistrust, you wonder where it comes from. I saw a lot of people on social media saying that they would want to know, has this person never been a student? Was this person not a student now? What was the exact status? But as I say, we battled to get a hold of the university representative.
Good morning, Thulasizwe Simelane. Is Robert Kellen Jimiston. I think those many churches are practicing rituals rather than to teach the word of God. So people who are desperate for help, such people, they get trapped in those churches because they seek help, but they don't know the word of God. That is why those pastors take a advantage about them, because they don't know what to do. I thank you.
No, thank you for that. You take me back to the hearings, what it was really like being in those boardrooms at the CRL Commission. Actually, they were held at the HRC, South African Human Rights Commission offices in Braamfontein. And I remember just those arguments, they were always there, not far from mind in terms of the people who were participating, including people who were saying, yes, you are saying the pastors abuse us and they take our money, but we are giving this money freely and we don't want you to interfere. It just talks to the complexity of issues of faith. Mbuyisa in Ladysmith, good morning. You want to talk to me about Advocate Dalimpofu?
Yes, you know what, I just want to, myself, I believe what Advocate Mpofu is saying, and I believe that he's having a case in what he's saying. I'll give you the reason why I'm saying this. Sure. Let's look at the attitude of Advocate Japsilias in Cosas 4. Let's go back a bit. Let's look at before Silias. Let's look at the attitude of Doberman in this matter of Omotoso. The hardline approach towards the witnesses, asking them how was it nice. Nothing was said about him. Let's come to Japsilias, Advocate Japsilias, SC, in this matter of Cosas 4. How he addressed the non-white judge in that matter. Because they are white, it is okay. There is that privilege. Here is Dalimpofu, this thing is subjective. It depends on which side of the fence you are standing, Thulasizwe. When Dalimpofu says, we spend the night together. It is up to you if you are having a dirty mind or not. It got absolutely nothing to do with Advocate Mpofu.
All right.
As I wrapped up, I'm saying to you, Advocate Dali Mpofu is now. I'm listening to this gentleman of Flagstop, Sanepule. We know he always, whenever he comes to the to the radio, he's singing praises of Ramaphosa. So his argument is more political. He even lies when it's not necessary that Dali Mpofu was interjecting. At your lie, we are listening here. At no stage Dali Mpofu was disrespectful to you. So thank you very much.
All right, Mbuyisa, thank you for that. That's Mbuyisa there. Let me go to Peggy in Mpumalanga. Peggy, you want to weigh in on this incident at the Walter Sisulu University? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Mnguni, I can see that you grow and you grow leaps and bounds in terms of litigation and mitigation. But then I want to say right now, Mnguni, with regards to the students,
yes,
I'm a little bit concerned as to how they demonstrate, more especially when they are dissatisfied about certain issues.
Sure.
I want to plead and say that we understand, and it is very much understandable, their crisis. But resorting to violence at the end of the day will end up one of them or whatever being not successful and being faced with criminal charges. That will be obstacles in their future.
Yeah.
So I would say that I would ask all the movements, the students' movements, please, to meet and check as to how to deal with issues peacefully without resorting to violence, because that is very detrimental. That is my little contribution.
Thank you for that, Peggy. Thank you for that.
Thank
That's
you.
Peggy in Mpumalanga. Of course, that's talking to the situation at Walter Sisulu University, where there are conflicting versions, I must say, conflicting versions about what the sequence was between the students protesting and the shots being fired and some of the violence that then ensued. But as I said, we battled to get a hold of the university spokesperson, and therefore we've not been able to take that conversation forward. Thank you for those. We'll make more time and take more of your calls and WhatsApp voice notes a bit later on.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Let's talk rugby this time around. Zai, tell me about South African teams and their ambitions to have a clean sweep in the URC.
Look, Tulas, if you've got the likes of Siya Kolisi on the plane, you know that the teams from South Africa mean business. We've got the Sharks, they are circling, the Bulls are charging, the Stormers are hoping the Cape Doctor brings the wind and a win. And the Lions, they still have a mathematical chance. So let's go to it. Sharks will kick off their European leg against Edinburgh this Friday. The Bulls, who are sitting third on the log, they face a tough task away to Munster and Glasgow, but a top two finish still in play. Closer to home, the Stormers will host Connacht this weekend as they push from 10th into the playoff zone, while the Lions, currently 14th, have 4 home games left and a mathematical shot at just sneaking in. Soccer action, Stellenbosch FC. They had a narrow 1-0 win over Amazulu at the Dani Craven Stadium last night, rising to third place in the Betway Premiership log. Usutu, they suffered a 4th defeat from their last 5 league outings. They remain in 7th place on the log. Soccer action elsewhere, the Aston Villa boss, Unai Emery, has challenged his side to return to the Champions League next season after their dream ended against Paris Saint-Germain 5-4. It was their aggregate loss.
I am so proud, I am so happy, and I am really confident how we are doing this way, how we are increasing our standard, our demands, and how we are achieving the objective we can have. Of course, we are finishing here in quarter final, and hopefully we can come back again quick to play in Champions League.
And David Rea says Arsenal are going to the Bernabeu to win and are not feeling nervous ahead of the second leg of their Champions League quarter-final tie with the holders Real Madrid. The Gunners head into the game tonight in a commanding position after a 3-0 win at the Emirates Stadium last week.
That's something that we cannot control. That is out of our control. The fans, the stadium, the atmosphere, maybe the shows that they have in the stadium and all that. So that is out of control. We cannot think about that. We just have to think about ourselves, what we can control on the pitch with the ball. Play the same way that we played in the first game, and create chances and score goals. We come here just to.
And finally, Olympic news. The iconic Hollywood studio lot and the golden sands of Venice Beach are amongst an array of Los Angeles landmarks that will stage events for the 2028 Olympic Games. Now, Universal Studios will host a squash Olympic debut, with the sport taking place on Courthouse Square. This is the mock-up town which featured in the Oscar-winning movies such as Back to the Future and To Kill a
What do you mean?
Mockingbird. I know.
What are you talking about? Are you doing sport or entertainment? What's happening here now?
This is Hollywood for you. We are taking the Olympics onto a Hollywood platform. Venice Beach, which will host the triathlon, will be relocating. There'll be a lot of marathons happening there, as well as Long Beach, which was meant to be part of it, will now no longer be, as well as cycling road races. So Hollywood has taken over this Olympics, clearly. That's the 2028 Olympic Games. Looking forward to all of that and more. We'll have more sport with John Hedeka around 12:30. I'm Zaikan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musan. The headlines: the African Christian Democratic Party says it does not support Israel's ongoing bombardment of Gaza, but believes that every state has the right to defend itself when threatened. The party's statement follows strong criticism for its trip to Israel. The General Industries Workers Union of South Africa says 66 bodies that were retrieved from disused mines in Stilfontein in the northwest are still unclaimed from mortuaries. A total of 78 bodies were retrieved from underground months ago. And the Road Traffic Management Corporation says 1,155 vehicles have been impounded for violating the traffic regulations since the start of the Easter Road Safety Campaign last month. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Top of Pretoria, the N4, the Rustenburg Highway, Bakwena Highway. If you like, very heavy at Duranport Plaza. If you're on the N4 driving east, so you're coming in from sort of the Roslyn area, wanting to get through the N1, you might want to avoid that. That is a queue and a half of traffic on that N4 towards Duranport. The N3 stays heavy from Germiston all the way to a crash up the top then at the Buccleuch interchange. That traffic is very bad this morning. Seek alternative routes to avoid that one. Durban, the crash on the N2 North at Cement Factory, that has been cleared away. First of today's breakdowns with us before Cliffdale. So major traffic backlogging from Shongweni. Also the M13 out from Hillcrest. You're going to queue to get into that N3, to get through that single lane section and to get up through that Cliffdale area. Durban's N2 is busy this morning. Looks like probably a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction coming from Inanda Road. It's slow. A lot of mist around the Velcom area this morning in the Free State. Drive carefully out that way. A reminder about the protest action blocking roads in Nkobo, Eastern Cape, the R61, and the road that links you from Nkobo out towards Elliot also being blocked off as well. Maybe delay travel through that part of the Eastern Cape area. Cape Town crash, Jan Smuts at Klipfontein Road, delays all over that, and a crash on the M5 north around Kuba interchange, keeping traffic heavy from as far back as Kenilworth. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It was fast, easy, and he gave me the best quote. My savings is 644 rand. Come join our insurance and save some money.
Nice one, Lebo. Saving 644 Rand a month on your 2019 Mazda CX-3 would also make you so happy you might drop a beat. Outsurance clients know what it feels like to be on the winning side. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Switch and save today. Outsurance is always looking for ways to save you money. They are also committed to settling valid claims fairly and quickly. No hassles.
You know your claim is going to be taken care of and you've got support along the journey.
SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. Bahlabani Bantwa and Abafana Besithende are both aware of the uphill towards the wrap-up of the season. They're searching for nothing but a win. Catch the exhilaration of Mzansi's football. Marumo Gallants versus Golden Arrows on Saturday, 19 April at 2:30 p.m. Live streaming on SABC Plus and SABC One. Then at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Business Update on SAFM.
So one more update from Dowling. Good morning to you once again in Dowling. So when you said you were going to be spending time and rubbing shoulders with the governor of the Reserve Bank and other members of the MPC, this was not the mandate in Dowling. We had not sent you there to come back with bad news.
I really tried, I really tried, but we know that Governor Lesitsha Kganyago does not take any jokes and he sticks to his guns. And the SARB recently released its April monetary policy review, and policymakers said borrowing costs are likely to remain higher for longer due to increased uncertainty surrounding global inflation. Now, despite recent cuts over the past year or so, even though we've been seeing pauses this year, the bank is cautious about further reductions, citing heightened global trade tensions and domestic political strain. The proposed VAT increases may add to inflationary pressures, with the central bank estimating that the VAT hikes could add 0.2 percentage points to headline inflation annually. Now, the central bank has cut interest rates by 75 basis points since September 2024, reducing policy restrictiveness, but the key interest rate remains restrictive and changed at 7.5%. We also haven't started really seeing the direct loosening of monetary policy within the economy, as those cuts take about 12 to 18 months to actually filter through to the economy. Now, the bank aims to keep inflation within the 3 to 6% target range, with a midpoint of 4.5%, but uncertainty has risen since the start of the year. We have seen inflation remain steady over the last 2 months at 3.2%, but it is, of course, at the lower end of the SARB's target. Now, the central, or rather, given the upside risks of the medium term, the central bank deems the current monetary policy stance appropriate, and further rate cuts will likely be cautious, prioritizing inflation control and economic stability. Those cuts are now expected to only come through in the second half of the year, towards the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Tell me about what Baldwin Properties is saying about the funding that they've secured. Is this part of the joint private-public sector effort to try and address the housing situation in the country?
That's right, Tulas. The residential property developer securing a R1 billion loan from the International Finance Corporation, the World Bank's investment arm. Now, the funds will be used to develop over 16,000 affordable housing units in Tshwane's Mooikloof node. This project is expected to improve local infrastructure. The Mooikloof Smart City project, designated as a strategic integrated project in July 2020, will receive government-funded infrastructure, including water, sewage, electricity, roads, and stormwater services. Now, this partnership aligns with the World Bank strategy to leverage private capital for essential infrastructure, including housing. The IFCs emphasize the organization's commitment to expanding access to quality housing for low to middle income households. Baldwin Properties CEO Steve Brooks, in the meantime, says this development addresses South Africa's growing housing shortfall, particularly in urban areas where 66% of the population currently resides, and is expected to rise by 71% by 2030. Now, the IFC's investment in Baldwin Properties is said to aim to stimulate job creation, economic growth, and local supply chain, strengthening the surrounding community and contributing to some of South Africa's broader development goals.
All right, in Dowling, what kind of a Wednesday can we expect today in the markets?
So local markets may struggle to hold on to gains, and so we might see stocks open in mixed territory this morning following a downbeat showing from global peers. In terms of company news, traders will be digesting Clicks' interim results. And then moving over to currencies, the rand is on the back foot today, back above the 19 rand mark to the dollar. It's at 19.03 to the greenback this hour. Looking over at Wall Street, retail sales figures in focus on that front, with that print out later today. And ahead of those figures, futures are in the red. Lastly, in Asia, stocks on track to close the day in negative territory, and this despite strong Chinese GDP figures. Investors are more concerned about the trade war brewing between the US and China.
If she said it, take it to the bank. That's how Ntaoleng Lechela there, always right on the money. She's kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets over the last 3 hours.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Right, let's continue our engagement. Let me start with a call, actually. Let me speak to Thabo in Kroonstad. Good morning to you, Thabo. You want to weigh in on the conversation we had earlier on with Advocate Dalimpofu?
Exactly. Thank you, Tula. So yes, when we see the whole story of now Dalimpofu as a victim, as we can remember, President Ramaphosa himself, by the profession as a lawyer, Judge Hlophe, Advocate Mkhwebane, former Chief Justice, where he complained that the second state capture is on the arising. Chief Justice Mkhwebane is a complaint. Dalimpofu now, he stands as an accused because all the judges who group under MK is a war. I'm supporting Dalimpofu. They can charge him, but it's a witch hunt after Senior Judge Dalimpofu. Is a plot against him. I say he must stand like a man, because now there's a problem there because of former as the President Ramaphosa. Now he wants to charge him. We suspect he's a victim. Yes, I support him.
Do you believe President Ramaphosa is behind him being charged?
Because now he's a lawyer himself. Now that Talapala case. That is running around that situation. That is what I'm suspecting, yes.
All right, Thabo, thank you for that. But I'm actually enjoying the diversity of opinions on this matter. It's simply not flowing in one direction, and that's beautiful to see. Let me take a call from Max in Velcom. Good morning to you, Max, also on the same issue.
Yes, thank you, Tulas. Welcome to SAFM, and you're doing a very good job.
Thank you, Max.
Yes, on this thing of Dalimpofu, Tulas, if you can go through all his cases, you go all of them. Dalimpofu, when he presents himself, he is not presenting himself as a professional lawyer. You can watch him, you can watch any other lawyers. He presents himself there as a hawk who's going to ridicule you rather than get to the facts. That is why most of the cases what you will check, you will see he lost almost all of them. He'll win there and he'll win there. But most of the cases he loses, and when he loses them, you've been trained in law, Tulas. When he loses the cases and you check, you find he was not going to a specific point, arguing that point. He was just ridiculing the witnesses, trying to make sure that the witness is discredited. But if the witness is sure and knows the issues and presents them there, you'll find Dalimpofu losing all those cases.
Interesting take.
It's a disappointment for law.
Yeah. All right, Max. Thank you for that. That's Max in Velcom. Zoe in the Eastern Cape. Good morning. Also on the same issue.
Good morning, Tulas.
Good morning.
I've long been waiting now to make my contribution about.
Have you lost your train of thought?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
For me, this thing is not about political motivation. The element of political motivation in every argument is a triad argument. Look at political motivation. There's nothing about political motivated here. The thing is, I observed that senior advocate Dalimpofu, I'm from his place, Kong, his original place. He has become overly confident over the years. It's a human weakness. As a result, he became arrogant, and condescending. So those are the things, yeah, like you hear most callers, like the previous caller before me. He's overly confident, and then now that results in arrogance and condescendence.
All right.
So what he needs to do, he needs to deal with that. It's not a charge for criminality. He must be corrected and advised if you need any outcome of these charges that please, in advocate, try and work on your arrogance and your be humble in the noble profession.
All right.
That is not how you should behave. It is because of that you attracted all this to you because of that.
All right, Zoe, thank you for that. That's an interesting take there from Zoe. Let me take a voice note also on the same issue.
Good morning, Twilas. I think on the issue of Advocate Mpofu, blind loyalty sometimes is our problem as people. We all saw his behavior, and most of us, myself included, who are not legal trained, as he puts it, were dismayed with his conduct. I mean, to ask Thuli Madonsela about her features, what does it have to do with anything? I mean, that was utterly wrong.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. But of course, you heard him say that he considers all of this to be an exercise in frivolity. He says it's all frivolous. And in fact, he says some of those charges that have been put before him, the legal professional misconduct charges, are actually laughable, according to Advocate Dalimpofu. In that basket include what you are raising, the repeating of some of the insults when he was questioning Advocate Thuli Madonsela at that commission, at that committee in Parliament that was looking into Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Let me take a call from Lwazi in the Eastern Cape. Good morning to you, Lwazi. Also on Advocate Mpofu this morning.
Good morning to you and your listener. I think Enyansweni Butulas, not as citizens of this country, we need to play a role in terms of see concerned when we see this kind of behavior as an advocate at for Pious Court. And in the city, it's been 3 years. So, thina ke singabantu abangenazo voices mhlawumbe besifika sizibuza ingaba ibehavior eyamkelekileyo lena court yona nto yamkelekanga nje tu and ngoku enyanisweni inobonakala engathi ngoku there's a plot against him if yenzeka ngoku kodwa ke nansi ipoint yam is that yona ibehavior yakhe I don't think that really it is allowed. Ngokomzekelo you mentioned into yobana enye yezinto ezenza mhlawumbe angathanda ukuba emela abantu abafana noJacob Zuma and stuff. It's okay. Must see a back with case Karinel no Perilero. At that time, I think majority of the people were supporting Karinel in mind about in the Oscar Pistorius and Perilero. He made the term, I'm putting it to you, popular, and people would not stop but admire him in generations and walking I'm Tandy Oscar Pistorius. So we are quite looking what advocate, senior advocate, we are quite professional, even if you're representing somebody that people do not like.
I hear you, Lwazi, but let me say that when you are in that space, the practitioners will tell you that the main thing that matters at that point is the mandate and the defense of your client. But I get the point you are making, that do take the public along in these processes. The public are always watching, and I think that's part of what the Legal Practice Council, not just in this case, but generally their attitude is always remember that the public is watching, and the confidence that the justice system enjoys will be impacted positively or negatively based in part by what they observe as members of the public sit and watch from home. Let me take a call from Welcome in Tshwane. Good morning to you, Welcome. You want to talk to me about Mcebisi Jonas?
Yes, good morning. Very good morning, Thulasizwe. I just want to ask one good question about Mcebisi Jonas, because I was following this state capture issue, investigation of the state capture. And there is this question that was never answered.
Yeah.
That why did you leave the protectors as a minister at Hyatt Hotel in Rosberg?
Yes.
And jump to Duzani's Porsche to go to the place where he said he didn't know where he was going.
Yes.
I need that question.
To be
now, the Zondo never asked him, they never do a follow-up on that question. But he left the projectors as the minister.
Yeah.
To jump to Dujana's car, to go to the place where he said, I didn't know where I was going, to the Gupta's house.
Yeah. No,
that's the question that I need to know.
Thank you for raising that. Welcome. If we get an opportunity to speak to him, that's one of the questions we would have to put forward to him, because you're not the first person to say that the credibility, the esteem with which you hold him has been affected by the events that played out at the Zondo Commission. Robert in Mpumalanga, good morning. You want to talk to me about NSFAS this morning?
Hi, Tulas, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
No, I'm very good, man. Hey, Tulas, I've got a serious problem with NSFAS here. We have got service providers. I'm the chairperson of the Mpumalanga Association of Student Accommodation.
Okay.
We have got a lot of students that were not paid by NSFAS last year.
Yes.
We tried our level best. No payment. We are not paid up to so far for the 2024 academic year. In the 2025 academic year as well, NSFAS is failing to pay service providers the money for accommodation. So we have got a serious problem. What happened recently in Eastern Cape, Tulas, if I can share with you?
Yes.
NSFAS transferred money that belong to service providers to the students. And they are saying now the student must pay the service providers, which is very difficult. It's very difficult to get money from the student, which was mistakenly paid by NSFAS to the student instead of the service provider.
Sure.
So there are serious problems that are with NSFAS. That's why I explained to the service providers.
So, Robert, you are talking here about service providers that are accredited and fully compliant with the NSFAS requirements, because we had a conversation with Ishmael Mnisi a few days ago, and he was talking about all the backlogs as they relate to those who are accredited and fully compliant. Those have been paid from the last year.
I'm talking about service providers who are accredited and fully compliant to us. Ishmael always, when he's talking on TV or whatever, so he's not making the correct statement. People are suffering there. Our service providers are not paid.
All right.
And that is a boiling point for the student and for the sector.
Let's do this then, Robert. Let's do this. Let me keep you on hold so that the team can take your details, because you represent that sector in the province of Mpumalanga, so that in future when we have this conversation, we can then bring you on board and see if you can weigh in on it. Because, sitting where we are, we don't have direct coalface experience of how these matters work out. Mandla in Newcastle, can I ask that I call you back in a while? I do need to take the traffic at this point.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still queuing in Pretoria, the N4, eastbound into Durham-Port Plaza. If you're trying to get through the plaza towards the N1, you will have an extended wait this morning. Also, Sefaka Makato coming out of Montana down towards the N1, unusually busy as well. Joburg, we've got some very heavy traffic on the N3. It was all being held by an earlier crash up at Buccleuch. There's now a broken down vehicle before you get to Marlborough Drive. The traffic stays heavy from Galuli's up through Edenvale towards that scene. A crash on the N1 North at Winnie Mandela, causing delays from Randburg. We pointed out earlier this morning a big pothole on the N3 Durban bound near Market Road. Pothole repair works are underway there, so it's just a single lane open, leaving Pietermaritzburg Durban bound heading down to Market Road. You can imagine that's all heavily backed up. Heavy traffic again, Key Ridge up to Cliffdale. It's now a collision scene. The right lane is blocked, only one lane open. Major delays if you're on your way to Pietermaritzburg. And Cape Town, just having a look at Marine Drive, which looks unusually busy for this time of morning out of Tableview. It's a crash down at Racecourse Road, and that's a big delay coming in from sort of Dolphin Beachside, and a crash on the M5 North at Kuba. Get a change, backlogging traffic from Kenilworth. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's the catch of the season as our 3 madcap fishing fanatics are back, embarking on even a more exciting adventures across the globe. Get ready for bigger fish, bigger laughs, and more extreme destinations in a series packed with adrenaline-fueled fishing antics and plenty of friendly rivalry. Fishing Impossible Season 2, Fridays at 10 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Football intelligence will be tested between the students, University of Johannesburg and Tshwane University of Technology. They are both eager to go an extra mile for victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Varsity Derby, UJ Ladies versus TUT Ladies, on Sunday 20 April at 11:30 a.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Let's squeeze in this story. The Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, will be on a site visit at key ports of entry during the busy Easter travel period to oversee what the BMA is calling enhanced border security measures. The authority has introduced a series of intensified interventions to ensure efficient traveler processing and border safety. Dr. Michael Masiapato joins me now to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So, which borders, which ports of entry and exit are you going to be watching, and specifically what interventions are in place to ensure that those ports of entry flow efficiently during this busy time?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, TS. We really appreciate this opportunity as the Border Management Authority. Yes, Tulas, for the exit leg, which is currently where we are now, we are actually managing the exit leg in terms of this Easter period, as most of the people will then be exiting the country primarily from today into tomorrow being the apex day. And of course, we will then handle the return leg from Sunday and Monday. But in terms of the ports that we are actually going to be doing some inspections on, the other commissioners are in other ports. I am here at Libombo, port of entry to Mozambique. The deputy commissioner, for example, for operations is in Beitbridge. Other team members are in Maseru Bridge as well as Fixburg to Lesotho, and other team members are in Oshuk. These are the key ports where we are expecting the majority of the people to be exiting the country through, but at the same time, these are the same ports we are expecting the majority of the people to be returning into the country, particularly in as far as the land port is concerned. But we do have other contingents in OR Tambo, Cape Town International, as well as in some of the seaports. So in terms of the intensified security, Tulas, as you will know, is the technology that we've brought in, the body cams together with the drones.
Tell me a bit more about those body cams and drones. Is it the position now that every BMA official at a port of entry or exit will be wearing uniform, and within that, embedded within that uniform, will be a body cam?
Yeah, you see, because of resource challenges, it's not going to be all the officials, but it's going to be around 40 in the current. And of course, as we get more of the resources, we will be able to procure more. Obviously, the intention is that all our frontline officers are supposed to be operating with these particular body cams, because they are just not for recording purposes, but they're also used as communication devices. So the intention is that we are definitely going to be rolling it out throughout the entire frontline staff complement of the BNA, but in the meantime, we're only going to be doing on 40, and as we get more financial allocations, we will be able to procure more to us.
And what's the intention behind it? Is it to curb incidents of corruption?
Yeah, you see, one of the primary objectives of the body cams to us is to deal with issues of corruption. And that is primarily on the basis that the body cams are actually recording the activity and the both audio and visual that our officials will have with the traveler. And therefore, that is the first part. But the second part is also for security, so that when our official is under siege somewhere in the bushes as they do the work, they press a button there, and then they will be able to be rescued. And the other issue, obviously, is for the footage in terms of the activities that get monitored at the National Targeting Center at Pretoria.
You had a busy time during the festive season in terms of the number of interceptions of undocumented people crossing the borders of the country. Just recap on that and tell me what your anticipation is and your readiness to do that interception this time around.
Yes, indeed, Tulas. During the return leg in particular, we had a lot of interceptions. So remember, we spoke about around 58,000 people in a period of 44 days that were able to intercept. These were the individuals who were attempting to enter the country illegally. But the most important part, Tulas, is that through the drones that we used then from the Department of Agriculture, we're also able to identify what we call facilitators. And for those ones, when we intercepted them, whether in Beitbridge, in Maseru Bridge, in Libombo, we did not deport those, but we actually got them handed over to the SAPS for the purposes of getting them through the criminal justice system. We charge them for aiding and abetting, because those are the people that are very much problematic for our work. So again, out of that, we are definitely going to intensify the same model with the drones now that we have as the DNA to actually be able to do the same, particularly during the return leg, particularly on Monday in the coming week.
Lastly, and very quickly, Dr. Masiapato, you had quite a number of border closures, intermittent, over the last few months. Some damage occurred also at some of your ports of entry and exit due to weather conditions. What's the status in terms of borders remaining open and operating at maximum capacity?
Yeah, most of the ports that got affected with the rains were mainly those on the western side. Those are the ones to Botswana in particular. We had Groblersdal Bridge, which is one of the big ports that was seriously affected. But now we can confirm that all of those ports are now full in operation. It was mainly affected by the Limpopo River together with the Molopo River in terms of the other ports to Botswana, as it were. So now we are back to full capacity. But of course, we're able to work with the rest of the stakeholders to stabilize those particular environments to make sure that we're able to do the work in this particular Easter period and make sure that people are properly facilitated.
All right, thank you for that. That's Dr. Michael Masiapato, the Border Management Authority Commissioner. And that's it, really. That's our story for this Wednesday. We've got you all briefed up. But don't go anywhere. More quality news and current affairs and talk programming still to come here on SAFM. Up next is Kete Mutlatlana with the talking point here on SAFM. But that's only coming up after the news.
In our top stories, Sandu rejects mandatory attendance of religious gathering and bodies of Stilfontein illegal miners remain unclaimed. Good morning. The South African National Defence Union says it rejects what it terms the coerced attendance of a religious gathering for SANDF members. The union says it has been made aware of a WhatsApp message the acting chief of SANDF is purported to have issued, ordering members to attend the Easter church service at the Tabatswane City Hall in Pretoria this morning. According to the message, only members with the SANDF chief's approved reasons will be excused. Sandu's National Secretary Pakkie Greef